opportunity tonight to go through the presentations of 3 health providers and they all, from what I hear, okay, because I wasn't in on it, and from what I hear, they all were outstanding, so I'm ready to look at the first one. Okay.
All right.
We're going to approve the agenda?
Yes.
I'm sorry, yes.
I make a motion to
Yeah.
approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Support.
All those in favor?
Madam Chair, do we
Yes.
have to leave should we leave this door open since it's an open meeting?
You can. Mhm.
But we're gonna have the other people out there.
But the other people are gonna be out there.
Yeah, as long as they can walk in, because that way they can't hear.
Are they in our office?
I just wanted to add something to the agenda, just for a brief discussion. That's just
Okay.
on, I don't know what we title it, but,
David said we shouldn't.
all right.
That's a
Should I-
special meeting. He said we shouldn't have that. Because it's a special meeting for that.
I just wanted to talk briefly about hiring and Dennis being involved in that kind of thing.
Okay.
But-
Well, that's part of this.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, well, we can add it to
Yeah.
that. Okay,
I think having the discussion of this.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, please.
Gina passed out some of our information. We condensed it down from this size
Thank you.
to that size. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Dyball. I'm with Security First Benefit Corporation of Flint, Michigan. And I'd like to, first of all, thank everybody for the opportunity to work with Blanc Township again. And hopefully we'll be successful in becoming your employee benefit specialist firm. If we're selected, you'll be working not only with myself, but with a team from our office, consisting of Bill Foster, my partner of more than 40 years, Michael Witter, our newest partner, 10 years experience. We'll be acting as your agents, and then we're going to assign 2 people in our office, Melissa Dorsett and Gina sitting here to my right, to your count. Unfortunately, tonight is a bad day for us. It's the last day of open enrollment in the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare as it's been known. Micah and Melissa and Bill are not available. They, along with most of our staff, are going to be at our office till midnight, taking care of all the procrastinators.
Steve, you're always the face of this anyway for this place.
Well, good. That's not a pleasant thought to see my face, but anyways. Yeah, they'll be there, they'll be involved. We've got some of our staff that in the last several weeks have been working 100-hour weeks, so we're very grateful for the time they're putting in and getting everybody properly enrolled. Gina Homer, as I mentioned, is one of our top staff members. She does all the manual work along with Melissa in our office, and by that I mean she handles all the day-to-day problems and claim questions and billing questions and everything else. And I honestly, God, I'd love to tell you that if you come with us, there's no more problems, but I'd be lying to you. And there's always going to be issues, there's always going to be questions on billings, and Gina and Melissa are the best at fixing these problems that I've ever had in the 40 years I've been working. My company, Security First, just briefly was established in Flint in 1924. We currently have 67 full-time employees, 24 dedicated to group health and welfare benefits. We currently service 236 business clients, most of them in this area, but all over Michigan, 15 of them being in the public service sector. We also service thousands of individual customers, and that's what's keeping everybody else working late the last few weeks, I should say. Some of our clients in this area, Compact Webcore, Shively Brothers, Genesee Packaging, Blessing Company, the City of Burton, the City of Linden, the City of Perry, Saginaw Township, Shiawassee County. We currently retain over 92% of our clients, and we are experienced with working with government entities. And in fact, I was the agent involved with Blanc Township for 10 years prior to your association with your current agency, Merrill Agency. And we were replaced at the suggestion of your former supervisor, Dick Dunn, so disappointed, but understand. We're a hands-on agency, and we work with the township to develop an employee benefit program to save the township both time and money and meet the needs of your employees. Our goal is always to service you, and service is what we hang our hat on. I'd like to come in here and tell you I can give you a better rate with Blue Cross, for instance. It's not possible. The rate is the rate is the rate. It's to the penny. So what we have to do is take care of you better than anybody else, otherwise you go someplace else. What our plan is to meet with you on an ongoing basis, quarterly minimum, to review the plans, the plan designs, the pricing. We'll evaluate the vendors and any ongoing issues that are out there. We're local, so we can always be available to handle any issues at any time that they arise. And what we bring to the table is not only our years of service, but our expertise in working with labor unions. We have a lot of businesses that are backed with the labor union, and we've worked with them for years and years. And we'll be available for all labor contract negotiations. We're very fortunate in our office to have President Larry Lowndes. He sits on the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors Committee. This committee meets in Washington, D.C. on an ongoing basis, and monthly they have a teleconference. It's made up of top people from around the country that are on the cutting edge of all aspects of current trends in employee benefits and also in changes in the laws surrounding the Affordable Care Act. Larry spends an average, he told me the other day, spends on an average of 2 hours a day keeping up with compliance issues, and he keeps our agency well informed on these matters.
Sorry, what was the name of that group that is part of it?
It's called the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors.
Okay.
And that, I don't know, maybe 2 other people in the state of Michigan are on that, but these are very top-notch people. We get things many times to our office before we read them in the paper or trade journals or anything else, so we're very fortunate having them. We have also partnered with a number of firms to bring our clients first-class human resources and to more effectively communicate the benefits that the township provides to your employees. We have a full-time staff member, Paul Sano, whose only job at our office is to get you and your employees enrolled in these plans. We'll talk about those in just a few minutes. The first one is HR 360. This is on page 6 and 7 of the little handout that we gave. This is the premier HR library that every business we feel needs to stay compliant with federal and state guidelines, COBRA, family medical leave, healthcare reform, along with a must-do checklist for HR compliance and required document checklist that we will follow to make sure that we keep very low the risk of a Department of Labor audit. There are modules in this program that not only tell you the best way to hire somebody, the best way to fire somebody, the best way to discipline someone, how to do a performance review. There are samples of required employee handbooks, samples of summary plan descriptions, summary benefit coverage notices, along with all HIPAA notices, signage, everything that you need to stay compliant by law, and everything you need that has to be given out to your employees on a timely basis. Gina, can you touch just quickly on that, on page 6 and 7?
They did voted for the tallest and the shortest, so. Coming from a background of administration and being one of the few people in the office who they all go to when their computers are doing something or the copier isn't doing something. I've had the benefit of looking through these and taking the courses for Employee Navigator and for HR 360. Both of them are very strong in supporting a administrator. The HR 360 allows your administrator to be relieved of a lot of the day-to-day process of when hiring somebody, the paperwork, the packet. And I know when I spoke to Sue before, there's a packet that gets made whenever somebody's gonna get hired, and, you know, we have a whole big kit that goes out and everything. Everything is put at the fingertips of the employee. It makes a first impression that, you know, we're here, we're modern, any questions you have, you can go to this, log in either on your phone or on your computer. You can see what plans you have, you can sign up for your benefits when the renewal comes around, instead of having your HR person chasing people down, needing signed documents, and we have a deadline and so forth. The reports that it's capable of running would give you an idea of what your current expenses are running, instead of on an annual basis, which, from my understanding, is how some of the expense reports are being ran now. It's a lot easier to budget off of that, of course, but with Employee Navigator as well, both of them, HR 360 and Employee Navigator, both complement each other in the sense that one supports the employee more and the other one supports the employer. Both are generated to make it easier for both of them to find what they need, instead of you know, sending out emails left and right, trying to find an answer and so forth. It has all the questions that you could possibly have, even if the HR person is unavailable to ask. So it keeps everybody up to date without having to bog down a specific person to have to take on as many employees that you have, especially with over 100. That's a lot of employees to come knocking on your door.
As Gina mentioned, we'll also be enrolling, if we are selected, employees in the Employee Navigator, and that's referenced on page 8, 9, and 10. The Employee Navigator is now being used by over 10,000 employers with over 1 million employees put in this. This Navigator that Gina mentioned allows both your HR department and your employees easy access to all their employee benefit data. Not only on their computers, but also on their smartphones if they wish. All employee answers now don't have to come from the HR department. Things such as, what does my dental plan cover? What's my deductible on my health care plan? How much life insurance do I have? What amount of money do I get if I'm sick? These things are all personalized, available 24/7. It offers Affordable Care Act simplicity in accounting. It's a very good collection tool, the best that I've seen for the new 1094C and 1095C compliance tracking reports that have to be filled out for the first time this year. It even gives your employees a virtual ID card. So on their smartphone, they can have their Blue Cross card, they can have plan summaries, plan documents, prescription information, a provider directory if you so wish, and everything is customized directly to Grand Blanc Township. Anything else you want to touch on that? Again, Paul Casano from our office sets everything up. He comes here, gets the data that he needs, goes back to the office, plugs it in, and completes the whole task.
You'll still give hard cards, correct?
Oh, yeah,
Okay. Some dinosaurs like it.
I do.
That's what I'm saying, I do.
I do, in case I can figure out how to turn my phone on. We'd also like to bring on board a firm called EHIM, Employee Health Insurance Management, and that's referenced in page 11, 12, and 13 in this booklet. They'll handle your third-party administration of your claim process. We've used a number of TPAs, third-party administrators, over the years, and these people, in my opinion, are by far the best. What EHIM will bring to the table is the only firm that I'm aware of that has a direct reimbursement process with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. This eliminates the need to fax items paper trails. If you look at page 11, give it a second. Looks like this, the HIM. What happens in the scenario is that when your employee visits the doctor, the hospital, the lab, whatever, the doctor, hospital, lab submits a claim to Blue Cross Blue Shield. Blue Cross processes the claim and produces what's called an explanation of benefits and mails that to your employee. When Blue Cross processes this claim, EHIM immediately receives through an electronic data feed that same information. And they're then able to process the claim for reimbursement right from that. So instead of having your employee have to mail something in, EHIM has that direct feed. They pay what needs to be reimbursed either to the doctor or the hospital and lab direct, or if the employee wishes, they will mail it to their home address, and they will always get a summary of benefits of what they have processed also. Also, I think very, very, very important, EHIM monitors all submitted claims for accuracy, making sure that only eligible claims are paid. They've been able to substantially reduce our clients' pharmaceutical costs. One of our clients last year, to give you an example, they self-funded their prescription card. And EHIM received a prescription hit for $4,800 for a specialty drug, $4,800 a month for an employee's specialty drug. Before we even saw it, EHIM had, as part of the service, went out, researched this new drug. They found a foundation that pays the entire cost, and so now the employee pays nothing, the company employer pays nothing, and this is what they do. They go out and they will research foundations, they'll research nonprofits, they'll research anything they can to get the cost of these drugs down, and even go to bat, we'll go back to the pharmaceutical companies and work with them to negotiate costs. This is saving thousands of dollars in the prescription pool of these companies. If we're selected, how would I proceed? As I mentioned, I think the first thing is make sure, it's service, service, service. That's the first thing, that's the key, that's what we do. We don't lose accounts due to poor service. We lose them because somebody's brother-in-law gets in the business or something like that, but I don't think in the 40 years I've been doing this, I've ever been told we had poor service. Number two, we have a quote provided in our original quotes that saves the township several $1,000s a year on your group life, your short-term disability, and your long-term disability. Not a huge amount, but what I would propose that we would do is go back to your current carrier, which is Standard, the Standard. I know them very well. We're one of the premier agencies, and Standard is a very good company, as is MetLife, who provided us a quote and saved us a couple $1,000s. But I simply go back to Dennis Forth at Standard and say, look, we've got these numbers for MetLife. We have no problem with the Standard. I don't think the township that I'm aware of has any problem. Why don't you just match these numbers? And I think it's a pretty good chance that they would. And what does the township have to do? Nothing. Just pay a smaller bill every month and pocket the savings. Thirdly, Paul Hasano from our office is going to come in and he's going to get HR 360 and the Employer Navigator installed for you, for your HR department, for your employees. Moving forward, and I know this is going to be a process and we're probably going to meet quite a few times, but moving forward, our goal will be, number one, to try to lower the retiree health care costs. I know in the past that's been a sticky issue. Recently, we were able to save one of our municipalities over 40% on the retiree costs by putting in a new product called Group Medicare Advantage Plan. And cut the, I was looking at some of the bills that you probably, you've got retirees that are husband and wife are over $3,000 a month. And this one comes out about $550 a month for the two of them. Just huge savings. Number 5, I would explore the possibility of self-funding. You're self-funding part of your business now. And when I say self-funding, it does a couple of things. Number one, it allows us to match identically, exactly, the plans that you have in place right now, even for your retirees. Although the term is self-funding in our industry, it's kind of a misnomer because your group is not big enough to totally self-fund. General Motors self-funds, big, huge corporations self-fund. But in your case, you could not afford, or at least I don't believe you could afford to have a monster claim or a huge amount of smaller claims. So what happens under the self-funding is you buy two types of stop-loss coverages. You provide a specific stop-loss and you buy an aggregate stop-loss. And just as an example, let's say a group of 100 employees and you bought a specific stop-loss policy, and we go out every year and shop this out also. Lloyd's of London is one of the main players in this marketplace, but there's about 40 firms that do this, and we just shop it, and a lot of times we can leave the plan rate in place so we can find a lower cost for the... So you've got a group of 100 employees, you buy a specific stop-loss policy for $25,000 and an aggregate stop-loss policy for $1 million. You put it in place January 1st. January 10th, one of your employees has a premature baby, and the claim's going to be $1.5 million. What happens? Well, because you have a specific stop loss, it stops the loss to the employer at $25,000. Anything over that $25,000 is picked up by, let's say, Lloyd's of London. Secondly, all the bills together from every source, if they ever hit the $1 million, everything from that point on is also paid by the stop loss carrier. So I would like to look at this, explore it. One of our quotes using self-funding and stop loss guarantees the township a minimum savings of $200,000. And that's the worst case scenario, and it matches your plan designs identically. Number 6, we'd also like to look at some other options with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Simply Blue, as an example, is one of the plans that offers 6 to 7% savings per year. There's not much difference in a Simply Blue product and the traditional Blue Cross products. There are some, so we'd have to explain those and take a look at them, but almost all of our customers today are on a Simply Blue platform with Blue Cross. Another option, you can use a defined contribution Blue Cross plan. A defined contribution simply means that the township agrees to fund each employee a certain amount of money that goes to be used for their health care dollars. So what happens? The township says, we'll give you this amount of money for a single, this amount of money for a couple, this amount of money for a family. Then the employee gets to pick from up to 10 plans. And the employee can then pick the plan that best suits what's right for him or her family. Instead of the township deciding on a plan, the township simply agrees to, this is the amount that we're going to fund, and let the employee pick the plan. Time being, I think, just in talking with Sue the other day, that bad time of year to change third-party administrators. I think that's the biggest thing that we'd like to do, but we can work with your current TPA choice strategies to see if there isn't a better way to handle employee the reimbursement. I have questions. Why do you need 2 pots of money? One for medical and one for prescriptions. We've talked to a number of third-party administrators. No one has ever seen the arrangement that you currently have in place. It's very cumbersome, I know that. I still get calls, and I have a lot of friends that work in the township, and they know that I used to have the business. What can I do about this? I was like, I can't share stuff with you because it's confidential, but so I do once in a while bump into somebody to talk to me. So again, what we would really like to do is look to install the EHIM third-party administrator to better handle the reimbursement, to have the direct feeds from Blue Cross Blue Shield, no papers, fax, no forms to fill out. And the best part, I think, is that's good, but the best part is their prescription management. These people really grab a hold of what's what, and they'll work with your employees individually. They have people on staff at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if people have a question, there's an 800 number they can call and get information. They will try to direct people, while you're taking this drug, but here's another drug that has been proven to be as good, if not better. They've got a number of pharmacists on staff. It just works better than I can ever expect a third-party administrator to do. So again, I appreciate you taking the time tonight to listen to a little bit of what we had to say. I know this is a very busy time of year and everybody had to come in and spend the time here. I'm happy to talk to you about what Security First can bring to the table. And just thank you again for the time and the consideration. We kind of look forward to doing business again with you at some point, hopefully.
Could I ask you, what would be the first thing that you would do with our employees? Should we give you?
To do what, Mickey?
What would you do to familiarize our employees with your program if we were to pick you? Well, I mean, just tell me, how you would proceed.
What we would have to do is, first of all, get everybody enrolled in these plans. It's cumbersome. It takes a long time to put all the data in that we need. But once we have that data in, what I would like to do, if possible, is have some employee meetings. Or we can put together, Gina can put together a video, whatever's best, but we have to communicate. These things don't do any good unless people know how to use them, so
I would prefer the meetings because
we have
there's
no problem.
questions back.
That's what we prefer also. It's nice to have a human being sitting there answering questions. So the first thing would be to get everybody up and running on the plan, and then secondly, to show them. Again, we have myself, Bill, Micah, we've got a number of people we can put on meetings for the employees.
I'd just like to add to that, because we are hands-on, people perceive things different ways. It's like having, I have a boy and a girl. Neither one of them saw school the same way. And though my husband was able to help my son, and my daughter would be crying before he would even finish a sentence. We all learn differently. We all perceive things differently. And we not only have a hands-on with your employees, but we also have a support directly with EHIM, with Employee Navigator, with HR 360. If there's any issues that come up that concerns any of your employees, that's our job to take care of that. We find it to be the best, you take us, you get us.
Okay.
Whether you want me or not.
Scott?
Yeah, one of the things, I'm just wondering if you have a reporting system in place to help the township with filling out our 6056 and our 6055, forms for Affordable Care Act.
The HR 360 and the Employee Navigator both have a procedure. Again, it's going to take time to get it all up and running. I don't know how soon that you're going to make the decision and how quick we can get everything on board and get that done, but we don't have an answer. HR 360, for example, has they have attorneys on call, so we can call them up and say, hey, how do we do this? What's the best way to do this? Or how should this be done quick, accurately?
So do you guys fill out those forms or help us? Do you have any system in place for helping us to fill out those forms?
No,
Okay.
no. We'll get them done. We'll put a system in place, but
Okay.
it's a learning process because they're brand new, some of these things this year. So have we done this? No, but we will.
Okay.
We have to. That's what you're counting on.
Okay, I have a few questions here. So, first off, I guess EHIM. So if an employee goes to their doctor, is that bill paid then? I mean, essentially?
No, what happens is that bill is, you're going to hand them your Blue Cross card, or you're going to show them your Blue Cross card virtually on your phone or whatever. And the provider then sends the bill to Blue Cross. Blue Cross at that point is going to pay their portion, whatever their portion is going to be. They're going to send that electronic feed directly to EHIM, who is then going to process the reimbursement part. And the reimbursement part goes either directly to the provider or it goes directly to the employee, whichever the employee wishes. They prefer to send the checks directly to the provider.
Well, would that, okay, so now, as the township, can't we say we want that to go directly to the provider? Because Right, because that way you minimize,
It's paid.
right,
Yeah.
Right.
and we know it's paid, and that's the whole purpose of it.
I would.
Okay, funding of, like, we call it the Benny card, I don't know, but it's our drug card. And so there have been times when employees have, came up and they went to the pharmacist, gave them their card, and it was denied. Because they said, well, your funds aren't there.
Right.
And this has happened to several people that I know of. And they're standing in line and people are quite embarrassed because it's, they think their credit card's denied. How are you gonna manage that, like on January, we could go to you as soon as January. So how would you manage that to make sure that our cards transition?
Yeah, we're not, I'm not gonna pull your leg, we're not getting EHIM in place January 1st.
Okay.
So at this point, it's too late. And again, just talking with Sue, and Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's too many things year-end that, I know. So at some point, we will transition to that, and EHIM can you tell me why there's two buckets today, one for prescriptions and one for medical claims?
I have no idea.
That was their idea.
I've never seen,
But this is affecting the employees, that's why I'm asking you.
That's why we're
because-
gonna change it. There's no reason why that has to be.
Okay.
There's just no, unless you guys know something that I don't know.
So is there just one card, Steve? Your Blue Cross card pays for everything, your prescriptions? And
No, you're still gonna have an EHIM card,
Okay.
but,
And then they will submit that to EHIM, you'll get your drug, whatever it is.
right on the spot. Yep.
I go ahead, if somebody else has questions, go ahead, because I have several, so.
Well, that's all right, go ahead.
Service issues. If, I'm still struggling to understand this, but if you have an employee that, for whatever reason, they go to their healthcare provider, and the healthcare provider or Dennis, help me with this, I'm trying to, so we go to the healthcare, they submit a bill.
All right.
And they deny the doctor's bill, they said, well, we overpaid another doctor on a claim we shouldn't have.
You're talking about the third-party administrator and what happens why things are getting denied, we
Right.
overpaid this, so now you have to go back and collect from this and go back.
Correct.
So what he's referring to, Steve, and we have this in our presentation feedback, is that one of the biggest concerns we have was customer service.
Mhm.
And it had to do with the administration from the third-party administrator, where we had several examples. In fact, I think I have one around here somewhere, but it was a discussion of, okay, here's for example, there's $33 remaining in your choice account. Please use your card to pay that amount to fill in the blank. It appears that $45.06 refund you received from Quest, you used $15 to pay for a prescription. Please send the remaining $30.06 as payment to fill in the blank. Now obtain a refund from the Regional Medical Imaging for $55.88 and use those funds to pay the first guy. Then we'll request that Choice sends you $28.48 for payment of the remaining balance. That was what you're referring to?
Yes,
Yeah, well, that's the procedure that you've got today with your current third-party
Yes.
administrator. I don't even know if they examine claims, or do they just pay them? Does anybody know whether that they look to see if this is a legitimate claim before it's paid, or do they pay it? They look to me like, and again, I just hear what I hear, I don't know.
it was explained to me that it came out, they mistakenly took it from one bucket, and it should have been taken from the other bucket.
Okay.
And so my concern is, for the employees, I don't want somebody to call up and say, Mrs. Smith, you have to go collect from your 3 other doctors and give it to the second doctor, and then we'll make your account right.
We just don't see these issues with the EHIM. They administer these things on the spot, and it's, again.
They also have a group of people who, what they refer to as scrub, all the claims that are coming in. it keeps that type of scenario over there regulated. EHIM is the one processing the claims, paying them and taking care of all that. They are the ones that are going to be taking care of anything that would come up like that. It's basically a credit and debit type situation where the EHIM is taking care of that for you. They're not worried about two buckets. They have a pot full of money and this is what it's used for. This guy gets paid. Once the deductible's met, then, you know.
And believe me, they're not gonna let your bucket get too low, they're gonna call. You know, if you're gonna have, you can log in daily and see what's in that bucket if you wish.
But you guys will monitor, I mean, if we select you, you guys will monitor this, is that correct? So we shouldn't have to have an employee log on and say, oops, my bucket's low.
Yeah.
No.
Right,
No.
okay.
No.
The question I had, I think you mentioned that you can't go with the new firm, the processor at this point in time, but you said you would go with the choice card and it would be one bucket instead of two buckets.
Well,
right?
I'd ask them why.
Right, but I mean,
have
you've
no-
already,
Well,
but if we had to go in January, you said you would go with choice and you go to one bucket, is that correct? Did you say that?
I didn't say, I'm gonna find out, we don't know, because we're
Yes, you
not.
can.
We would have to
Conference
meet
call
with
with
them
choices.
just to find out what their contract is and how it is written and if it's possible for us to take it over and revise it.
You s-
But you said
I had a conference call with Choice Strategies late last week, and they don't understand why we have two buckets either.
We can't say because we have not talked to them or met with them, but that would be the first step we would do is
The
of course meet with
customer-
them and find out what their
The customer
contract.
service contact for us
Exactly.
explained to me that his recommendation is that you go to one bucket instead of two, and so they do have that capability. In fact, it's their recommendation, so we would be able to
Do
work.
they have any, did they ever mention, Dennis, that they have anybody else in a situation like Grand Blanc Township is in?
We are the only customers of theirs that have a two-bucket
So I
system
guess
of
going back
medical
to my
and prescription
question.
deductibles.
If we wanted to go with you, and then in January, you can't go to the other system, so you would go to choice and set up the one bucket for it, so we could get on
Yep.
with the
Yep.
choice card, correct?
That's correct.
because we want it to be seamless, whoever.
Right.
Yeah, we just, at this time of year, it's
Yes.
with
And
the
that,
holidays and everything, and we wanna make sure, and that's one thing we
Right.
wouldn't wanna do is kick out choice and not have somebody in place immediately.
and that could be accomplished if we decide to do that, right?
Yes.
By January 1,
So all we have to do is meet with, we have to have what's called an agent record, because they
Right.
won't talk to me today. But once I engage on it, then they're talking to me, and I
Right.
can find out, okay, guys, gotta be a better way to do this. How do you do it for everybody else?
So it would be seamless to our employees, they would get a new card through choice, but you'd be taking care of it.
Well, maybe not even a new card. Maybe they just have to redesign the program in their computer system.
Okay.
It's very possible to keep the same card that they got.
So when EHIM goes and finds a drug that's thousands of dollars cheaper, do they make you do some of the applying for that drug, or do they take care of
They
all
take
of
care,
it?
they take care of everything, and they don't force you. I mean, you control, it's your plan. You control, they can't put a gun to your head and say, you're gonna take this different drug, but, most times they have the research, the backing, they have the pharmaceutical people right there. It's not just simply paying the drug charge, it's looking at that drug and seeing, is there a better way to administer this to a patient? If it's expensive, one of these new specialty drugs, some of these things like the one at $4,800 a month, we've seen $15,000, $16,000 a month. And there are foundations, there's nonprofit organizations, there are places to go that you can have these people pay for these drugs. They're set up to do that, you just have to let them know. And again, they negotiate directly with the pharmaceutical companies too, and say, look, you can pay $16,000 on this.
But is that income-based for that? I mean, does everybody qualify for that type of,
This one wasn't income-based.
right, so that specialty drug, it didn't matter about the employee, they just said,
Nope.
they have this available for these people, right?
Right.
And there's no extra cost to us or to them either?
No.
Okay.
It was kind of nice, because they were
Right.
getting prepared to, suck out $4,800 out of their bucket every month, and now
Yeah.
drugs paid for and
Right.
done.
What is your agency status? Is it Premier or?
Preferred, Probably Premier with most other carriers. We've moved a lot of our business out of Blue Cross this last couple of years just because there have been a couple of carriers that have plans, Health Alliance plan, for instance, we've made a decision. We would be Premier if we linked all our agents together. We don't, because if one agent decides that I'm moving our business to Health Alliance plan or whoever, then we're penalized as an entire agency. So we each have a status with it. I prefer, I think I'm the second step down. Everyone else is probably Premier.
Yeah.
He's got a lot more large accounts, but no, I don't know what does it make.
I'm just curious.
The only thing I've noticed is that I don't get paid as much because I'm a preferred, but that doesn't affect anything that you guys see from us.
Any other? Okay.
All right, well, we're taking too much of your time tonight, so again, appreciate it. Hopefully we look forward to working together, and if you have any questions, holler, we'll be back immediately.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
so
Merry
much.
Christmas, everybody.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Cheers.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it. I'm Michael Splate with Franklin Benefit Solutions, and we appreciate the opportunity to introduce our team to you today, and hopefully, through this process, earn the opportunity to work with you and your organization. I want to tell you, we're going to talk about some things with your current needs and concerns. We're also going to talk about future needs and concerns. But we realize, working with a lot of municipalities, some of the budget things that are going on with Lansing and how they're affecting our local municipalities. We also realize that attracting and retaining quality employees is very, very important. Also, we're finding with our typical municipalities that they're not hiring more HR staff, I should say. They're actually, people are wearing more and more hats. So one of the things that's going through this process in interviewing, one of the people we met with was Sue. And Sue talked about her previous industry and then how she came over here. And she talked about, in regards to her passion for helping employees and helping them through the claims and billing administration. And we think with our team and some of the things we can bring from a technology and our support staff of Connie and Nikki and all of us, we can only enhance what Sue has been trying to do with your employees.
So we thought we'd give you a little bit background of how Franklin Benefits came together. We were founded in 2006, and interestingly enough, Tom and Michael actually worked for another agency, and they were trying to recruit me. I don't know if you remember the company, MCare, the University of Michigan owned their healthcare company, and I worked there for 10 years. And they were trying to recruit me, and through our conversations, we decided that, hey, being in the industry as long as we've been, we could do some things that we thought were bigger and better. We're here located in Grand Blanc. We are literally a half a mile away from your office here. So we're very close by. And we have 8 experienced life and health insurance agents that work in our company, where you would have access to all of us. But this is our management team here. What we took from meeting with your benefits committee is you had some needs and concerns that need to be addressed somewhat quickly. And one of those things that we heard loud and clear was your TPA concern. And I think today what we're going to be able to do is give you a short-term solution to that TPA, and then also a long-term solution. So meeting with your benefits team and meeting with Sue, TPA came from that, as well as services.
So TPA.
Third-party administrator, thank you, sorry.
Okay.
Our acronym world, I apologize. But also through that, those meetings, services. And I believe that Franklin Benefits is going to be able to provide you some unique solutions for those services through our online human resource services, through our online state and compliance and federal compliance services, and again, enhancing employee communication. One of the things that I think you might, as you're looking and comparing agencies, you might say, well, Franklin Benefits is getting ready to turn 10 years old. And so maybe from an experience standpoint, you might think, we haven't been in the business as long. Well, I can assure you, from an experience standpoint, I hate to date myself here, but I've actually been working in the industry now 20 years. Started with MCare, I worked there for 10 years, and I worked for the retiree coverage for the largest cases at MCare. The University of Michigan, General Motors, and Ford Retirees was part of my specialty. So my experience is coming from the carrier perspective, which I think gives us a unique perspective from the standpoint of having an agent who's been in the industry 23 years, and also someone who's been on the carrier side for a large majority of their background, and being able to get through the system. As many of you probably know, Blue Cross Blue Shield purchased my company, MCare, and still have a lot of relationships there.
And if I go back to my experience of 23 years, I actually worked for a local agency. I started out there, graduated from the University of Michigan, entry level. So I did all the claims, billing and administration, literally walked through every process. So when I sit down with an organization such as yours and say, have you done every job? At one time, I actually did. And through that entry level position, I actually grew to a partner level there. And then at one time I was trying to recruit Stacy, as she mentioned earlier, to join that organization, and eventually just decided to go off and start Franklin Benefits. So just to reiterate, I have entry level all the way to grow into a partner within an organization, now to be a half owner of Franklin Benefits.
We also have Tom here. Tom is our compliance officer and legislative support. Tom comes with 22 years of experience, and one of Tom's specialty is he's reviewing contracts and policies and summary plan descriptions, and all of the legislative updates that you'll be getting from Franklin Benefit Solutions is generated from Tom's department, where he works.
I think another thing that separates us too is we brought part of our team here, but it goes back to Connie and Nikki. And I'd like to have them talk about their day-to-day service and administration.
Thank you, Michael. I've worked with Franklin Benefits now for 9 great years. I am the Office and Claims Manager. I am also the enrollment coordinator for all new and existing business. This includes helping Sue, hopefully with all of her needs and concerns. I manage all of the claims that come into the office. And I think what sets me apart from others is my background in banking and collections. My collections background helps me facilitate claims processing and helps me know the ins and outs of the billing. We understand that the claims is a sensitive issue for employees, so we take that extra step to come in and meet one-on-one with your employees.
And I'm Nikki. Connie and I work hand in hand. I'm her account manager. And as her employees work with us, they will begin to realize that there's nothing that we can't do to help them get their claims paid for. Whether that's calling the pharmacy to see if we can get a couple extra days while one of the prescriptions is getting filled so that the employee doesn't have to go without those medications. Or we've gone as far as having to get credit reports fixed. So these are things that we've dealt with in the past and something that we can definitely help you with. And we also work very closely with the TPAs, which allows us a different type of direct access to information, and this allows us to get a faster claims process, which equals happier employees.
Thank you.
So you're just getting to know Franklin Benefit Solutions, and yeah, I know that you may have prior relationships, but one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is the fact that we are heavily involved in our community. From every client that we work with a lot of nonprofits. We are endorsed by the Michigan Nonprofit Association. We work with, quite a few. I won't name drop. How about that? But we do work with them, and through our community activism, we are doing a lot with the downtown Flint area as well as this area as well.
Another thing on the next page there talks about NAHU. NAHU is an organization called the National Association of Health Underwriters. NAHU's sole purpose is to work with agents and work with businesses to continue to improve the Affordable Care Act. One of the things, and we have direct experience with this, is we were meeting with Congressman Kildee, and there was a bill that was recently passed back in October called HR 1624, and it defined what a large business was. I won't get into all the details, but the bottom line, he was leaning towards voting for it, but then when we sat down with him and brought him client information, we got his support and he voted for it, and that part of the bill got repealed. And I say we meet with him locally, but last year, myself, Stacy, and Tom, we went to Washington, D.C., met with Congressman Kildee and other legislators, and we're going to be doing the same thing this February. We're going back out there, the three of us, to meet with Congressman Kildee and other legislature, and the big thing that's on our agenda is the Cadillac tax. And the Cadillac tax will affect the township in the future, so it's one of the things we're going to be really working with the town, or with, I should say, with our legislatures to repeal that part of the Affordable Care Act. Another thing we have here, we talk about leadership, is being part of NAHU, we get information quickly, but I have to tell Stacy here, Stacy's actually taking the time and energy to be a trustee of NAHU, and with that, she literally gets information before even us members. So it's just another way that we can work on behalf of your organization to continue to try to improve the Affordable Care Act. Next thing I'd like to go into is we have what we refer to as your HR partner. The one story, and I will go back and forth here, is when the Affordable Care Act came about in 2010, I saw it as a great opportunity. I had someone to my left that's standing behind a podium, I won't mention her name, it was Chicken Little, thought the world was going to end and we're going to go out of business. Well, far from it has happened. Is actually with the complexity of the law, we have actually doubled down. And over the last 5 years, not only we've committed a lot of technology, and we're going to talk about 3 things today. One program is called Xywave. Another program is called Employee Navigator. Another program is called HR 360. And we're going to be giving you information about these programs here. But it's the one thing, and I found very few organizations that have purchased all 3 of these programs. But we've taken a step further. We actually have dedicated staff to the implementation of these programs and helping out our clients. And we've also taken another step is we actually had Stacy and 3 of our staff members go out to Washington, D.C. for a week-long conference to learn more about these programs, to implement them and to effectively communicate and keep our clients in compliance with the Affordable Care Act. If I go back to my little chart here, is there's things that we really do as a broker, is we're really trying to be proactive with your organization. Represent you. We represent you to the insurance carriers and also the TPAs or third-party administrators. And then I think, again, what we're going to try to keep hitting on is, it says support your employees, what you want to do, but also support your HR staff. Sue and whoever's involved in her area there.
One of the other quotes that we took from the meeting with the Benefits Committee was, we don't have to change a lot, but what we need is to take our benefits to the next level. And I believe that we're going to be able to do that through our Employee Navigator system. And as all of you who sat through that meeting knows that the Employee Navigator system is a whole meeting to itself, so we won't get into the nuts and bolts of that. But what I'd like to talk about is how we can streamline your HR process and really help Sue take that benefits communication and take that to the next level. Compliance in state and federal regulations will be able to be housed on this Employee Navigator system. So what this system does is it houses everything in one spot. So your employees will have the capability of going online and be able to get this information. So I don't know how many times this has ever happened, but I don't know what my copayment is, and I realize you don't have a copayment because it's reimbursed, but sometimes people forget that because maybe they haven't gone to the doctor, and so they can go online and get this information. Employee Navigator, I think, also takes our employee meetings to the next level. We have various employees that we're working with. So we have people that like the face-to-face communication. We have the people that like the employee meeting communication. We have the people who like going online and being able to enroll online. And then we have people that, hey, I just want to walk away and have my employee benefits kit so I can flip through it and see what my benefits are. And we have the capability of addressing all of those with every employee. The one thing that I find really neat about the Employee Navigator system is total compensation statements. These are very powerful. If you have someone that's looking for another job and they're going down the road and maybe they're making X amount of dollars more, but they see this total compensation statement and it says, based on your employee benefits, you're making an extra $10,000 a year. How powerful that is that to keep someone? Our HR 360 also provides a lot of vast information from the HR perspective to be able to provide this information. So as a board, if you're looking and saying, hey, we need to hire a new cop, and how much is, or police officer, I'm sorry, how much is that going to cost? You can do that not only from a national level, you can do it from a local level, and you can actually define it by your city level. So these are the access and the resources that you're going to have through Employee Navigator. So third-party administrators, TPA, if you will. I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons we're sitting here today. What we took from the meetings, we didn't come in with a solution on our first meeting because we needed to meet with you and see what are your issues, what's going on with what service issues are you having, what third-party administrator issues are you having. From that, we took that you had some service issues. And we also took that you had some issues with the third-party administrator. And so we actually dove into this very deep. And I actually kind of skipped through the third-party administrator definition, but it is on the next page. So, one of the things that we've done as an organization, because of our familiarity with the municipalities, is we're familiar with Public Act 106, where you are required to go out and vet at least four vendors. We've done that vetting process for you. From our initial meeting when we came out and we realized what your needs and concerns were, we went to work. And when I say we went to work, we rolled up our sleeves and we really started digging into some information. We got 7 vendors that we started looking at. We also have an 8th one that's on its way, and then I'm going to include the 9th one, which is your current TPA. What we did is we got an authorization letter from Dennis and said, what is going on with your third-party administrator? When we were hearing what issues you were having, quite honestly, we didn't understand what the issues were, so we had to call the third-party administrator. So we did the vetting for you from these 7, including your TPA, and now getting this 8, so I go to 9, my fuzzy math, I guess, there. So we have some tips for you for looking at third-party administrators, and this is what we did in our vetting process. We looked at the scope of service, plan documentation, written service agreements, claims processing, how is this being done, management reports, legal and compliance costs. Claims processing seems simple, but not all TPAs process claims the same. How are they maintaining their records? How accurate is it? How are they being filed? Who's reviewing the claims? Who's adjudicating these claims? Who's preparing the EOBs, and how are the employees getting reimbursed? It's an ongoing thing that we continue to look at. And cost. Earl, I remember through our presentation, you kept going back, cost. And we had from $4.50 per person per month to $19 per person per month. And so sometimes when we look at cost, it is a part of that process because we want to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck. But we also want to make sure that maybe the $4.50, maybe I should throw this pen away because I keep dropping it. We realize that maybe the $4.50 per person per month TPA isn't exactly who we should be working with. So here's where we end up today, and I think this is what has made us different. We rolled up our sleeves and we called choice strategies. And I'm going to let Michael talk about this because he was very involved in the diligence of this work.
Thank you, Stace. Just to go back, we did do what we refer to as an authorization letter. That authorization letter does not make us your agent, but allowed us to, at least on your behalf, have a discussion with Eric, who is your benefits consultant or customer service rep. He's located in Vermont, but we had great conversations with him. And one of the things that he mentioned, based upon your plan, is you have this 2-bucket system where you have part of your reimbursement reimburses the deductible, then you have this other bucket that basically reimburses prescriptions. And I know when we get to that level, and Sue talked about that and all the issues there, is sometimes claims don't, or the HRA card declines, or claims don't get processed. And so employees are frustrated at what's going on. When we were having that discussion with Eric, he said it was very unusual to have this 2-bucket system. So his solution was very simple. And what the great thing about this, and actually I have an email literally from Eric today And also a letter, literally, that we can leave with you signed, is we got an email from his boss basically saying to do this change, it was supposed to be done 2 days ago. But they're giving, just so you know, we have it in written confirmation that they're still allowing the exception, make this happen January 1st, 2016, and seamless to your employees. We already got the letter approved, what it should look like, and we got the email correspondence, which I'll leave with you. You're welcome. So basically, I go back to my solution is, he basically wants to have one bucket. So for instance, everything just a $3,000 bucket, not this 2-in-1, and just a $6,000 bucket, not this 4-in-2, your deductible and the copays and all that. And he said with this situation that it's going to eliminate HRA debit card declining and claims not being processed. So when we're looking at an immediate solution, something we can process 1/1/16 that can be seamless to the organization and to your employees, which you think is important, this just made too much sense. Now, we also looked at long-term, and we mentioned all the TPAs we looked at. There's 2 TPAs out there that actually are quote-unquote online with Blue Cross and can process claims basically behind the scenes and act like the Wizard of Oz and do this stuff for you. There's 2 things that they mentioned. I'm going to give exact quotes. One TPA said we'd really prefer 30 days to do it 1/1, so obviously today's the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, what about doing a mid-plan year? I don't care, mid-plan year's 2/1, 3/1. And his term was, quote-unquote, it would be a grease fire. That was one quote. Another TPA that's online said we could do it mid-plan year, but it'd be, quote-unquote, messy. Now, if we're trying to interview to be your, hopefully, agent of record letter and earn your business, and if we're going to put you with a TPA, and I'm going in this with a TPA that creates a grease fire or potentially messy, and you're going to associate Franklin benefits with that situation, we're in this to earn your business long-term. We're not in here to earn your business for 1 year. So when we looked at it, the immediate solution to me is we have the letter ready. We can change your plan to make it run smoother with your current TPA, and then throughout the year, we're going to evaluate all these TPAs. In 117, would choice strategy still be the best solution? Well, we're going to put plenty of time to evaluate these carries, and we might find a better solution. But today, we recommend choice strategies. Yes.
Excuse me, can you explain why there was this bucket,
Okay.
separate buckets?
Well, when we asked Eric, he doesn't know why. And I asked him, does he have any other plans? And actually, our vast, 20 plus years, I've never seen it set up as different buckets. He mentioned at one time there might have been some reporting issues. And from our perspective, unless anything else came up, we didn't know why you would need these different buckets. So the problem is when you get close to that deductible, and then I go get a prescription drug, but say you get an office visit the day before, the office visit should have went to the deductible, but this prescription does, then I don't want to get in all the minutia. Right. But the bottom line, he says, one thing to really clean this up is to just have one bucket, $3,000 for a single, it goes towards deductible and prescription, and $6,000 for a family. And to separate it, and we have a letter, and we wrote it out that literally you can change that, and the employees will never notice the difference. Thank you.
Continuing on with Employee Navigator and some of the things that it can do, one of our jobs is to make sure that you're in compliance. So we review your contracts, your summary plan descriptions, HIPAA, business associate agreements. We house all of this information on our Employee Navigator. And the one thing that it's one of the major things that sets Employee Navigator apart, and I'm sure you've probably already started and was one of the questions that we talked about, is the 1095C reporting. I know maybe your payroll system might have that capability, but what's going to be nice about this system is we're going to be tracking that starting, January 2016, and we'll be able to track that for the year 2016. And then at the end of the year, we push a button and the 1095Cs are automatically sent out to your employees. So that's just one, again, like I said, the Employee Navigator could probably be a whole nother presentation unto itself. Last but not least, I think just in preparation for what you need to look for the future is, like Michael said, we are going to Washington, D.C. in February to talk about the Cadillac tax. It is something that will eventually affect you, and so we're working hard and diligently to get that portion repealed.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
Wasn't that extended now until 2020? They're not going to have the Cadillac tax until 2020? Is that correct?
I have not heard that. I know they need the funding. They're voting to repeal that right now or modify it, unless that's happened.
Yeah, well, I thought, at least, I think one of the houses did vote, and so.
Yeah,
Oh.
it hasn't gone through, because the president would have
And
to
what-
obviously sign it.
Yeah, what would be the Cadillac, I mean, you're saying how that's gonna affect our employees?
10,000, actually, you've got some suffixes or some portion, when we did our analysis, they're already over the Cadillac tax of $10,200. There's different tiers for the type of employees, so police and fire individuals would have a different rate structure, but the general is $10,200 for single, that's on an annual basis. Anything over that, 40% excise tax on any premiums paid by the municipality.
So before we get to Q&A, I just want to say on behalf of our entire consulting team here at Franklin Benefit Solutions, we really thank you for the opportunity to meet with you this evening and present our information. I really think through our experience and some of the services that we can provide you, we would be a great fit. But the 4 things that I want you to walk away with tonight, because I know you're getting a lot of information at you tonight, we do have an immediate solution that can be seamless. And I think that is setting us apart because we can do that seamless, we can have your employees, not affect your employees, they're not gonna have to fill out paperwork, they're not going to get new cards. And then I think as we work together, we can find a different TPA solution for 2017. We have the experience and the knowledge to be a perfect fit for Grand Blanc, Charter Township of Grand Blanc. Even though our organization has only been into effect for 10 years, we come from various backgrounds in the industry and have, again, the over 20 years experience being there. Technology. When I heard how can you take our employee benefits to the next level, technology is where this industry is going, and that's how we're going to be able to help service your HR team and expand employee communication. And last but not least, we're local. When we do the mileage report back and forth, we are a half a mile away from your organization, and that makes us available and accessible. And when it comes to employees' claims, and we need to sit down and we need to talk to someone regarding, how a claim is being paid and how can we resolve an issue with the carrier or the third-party administrator, we're right here and we'll be able to provide that service for them. So thank you very much. Yes?
Yes.
On the second to last page there, booklet here, can you talk a little bit about large group reporting, the forms 6055 and 6056, what's required, and do you have a process in place for helping us to complete those?
Yes. So the requirement is, it started in January of 2015 that you needed to start collecting the data information on everybody that you offer or who is eligible for health insurance who work 30 hours or more. Our Employee Navigator system, all of our current clients have been on Employee Navigator since 2014. We did have some clients that delayed the process and came on a little bit later, but so what this system does is it tracks who's on the coverage, how long they've been on the coverage, when they've been eligible for the coverage, and it also is tracking affordability. So you might have someone who might be on that cusp. I had a client the other day that needed to raise their employee's salary by $186 so that they were being covered or being offered what's deemed affordable coverage. Also, the system provides your variable hour employees. So you may have some employees that hired in as a part-time employee saying you're going to work 25 hours. But due to whatever circumstance, that employee is working 30 hours, then 35, and then maybe down to 23. It's tracking through that year to see whether or not that employee, come the following year, is eligible for benefits. So it's I hate to use the term robust, but it is a very robust system that's tracking that. And then what we're doing from our organizational standpoint, we're not CPAs, we're not the IRS, but this system is compliant, and all we have to do is provide the information which we're tracking you know, on a monthly, annual, weekly basis. And then come January of 2000, or January 5th, we're actually going to be doing our IRS submissions for the 1095Cs.
So the 6055 and the 6056.
That's the IRS code of those forms.
Okay.
So all of you here, if you work for a large employer, you're going to be receiving a 1095C, which is for your taxes. And if you're offered health insurance, whether, through whatever company, you'll also be receiving a 1094C. So that comes from the insurance company, and then the large group employers through the 1095C. So when you go to do your taxes, you're going to need one of these forms to show that you have health insurance.
So you do help complete those? Though?
Yes.
So that includes retiree health?
Does retiree healthcare need to receive the 1095C? You'll probably be receiving the 1094C from the health insurance company.
So, just out of curiosity, are you north or south of Maple?
You're asking me?
Right.
Can I say left or right? We're south.
You're south.
Yep, right across from Jackson Chiropractic.
Okay, that's,
Brown Brick Building, Max Suits Financial used to.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, I know exactly where you are.
All right.
But, so, how big is your company? You said, I mean, how many folks?
We got 8 employees and we're in the process of hiring a 9th employee.
How many companies are, how many, do you have any municipalities, any,
Yes.
okay, about, how many?
I think we have 9, if I'm not
9,
mistaken.
The size of Grand Blanc or bigger?
I would say, in most cases, I would say 7 of the 9 are smaller than Grand Blanc.
Can you tell us who they are?
Yeah, just to name a couple, Charter Township of Mundy, we work with Dave Geiger over there.
City of Durant.
City of Durant,
Amy
Amy Roddy. Of course, I'm drawing a blank.
Because we're about 100 employees, I think, right?
And I tell you that we represent townships all the way over, so if I were to pick on the township that's the farthest away from us, we work with Alpena Township. So that'd be probably the farthest away. So we'd prefer to work with someone a half mile away versus 192 miles away, but we love them, needless to say.
I hear you.
Stacy, are you one of the owners?
I am,
Good.
yes.
So,
Good presentation.
Thank you.
you answered my question on the funding of the card. Service issues.
Yes.
Can you read that? Please, Dennis.
A letter.
So, this has to do with, this is the third-party administrator issues, and I may have shared this with you, but I don't know if I had it when we did our presentation. This is a typical one of the customer service issues that we discussed while we're going through this process. Here's the response back from our current broker on the TPA issues. There's $33.02 remaining in your choice account. Please use your card to pay that amount to XYZ Medical. If possible, do this before you pick up any other prescription. It appears that of the $45.06 refund you received from Quest, you used $15 to pay for a prescription. Please send the remaining $30.06 as payment towards XYZ Medical. Please obtain a refund from Regional Medical Imaging of $55.88 and use those funds to pay XYZ Medical as well. Then we will request that Choice send you $28.40 for payment of your remaining balance.
That's impressive.
Unacceptable. Actually, if I, Connie, can I, maybe?
It's very, I really don't know what to say. I don't think I'd ever have to have any of our clients do that roundabout way of getting money back and then paying somebody else and then getting money back and paying somebody else.
Would there even be a possibility of it?
Is there a possibility of
Yeah,
it?
you might have to do that?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay.
So I've never, even our previous AG, I can't think of 20 years where we would send an email like that. That just is, I have trouble even following that.
Yeah.
We've had 3 doctors on one person that were paid incorrectly, and they had the spouse go collect the money.
I think we'd be more
So you would
efficient.
never do that.
I think we'd be more efficient at getting the claim adjudicated correctly, and I think by changing our HRA, because what that sounded like that was that scenario where you got this bucket and this other bucket thing, and then that's the confusion. I think when the plan was initially set up, and when you have your HSA plan with that HRA, I don't know why it was set up that way, but it was set up to have issues like that. So the way it's going down that road, we just have a solution where I think can eliminate that, and even if we had a claim issue, that response I think is unacceptable.
Yes.
Do you have any suggestions on how we might, in the future, just a thumbnail sketch of reduce retiree healthcare costs?
Well, I would tell you, when we looked at your plan, and one of the things that we do is we do a lot of benchmarking. And for instance, when we're working with, I would say, whether you have multiple unions like yours, or say I'll pick on a municipality where they have one union, we said, you know what, how do your benefits compare to other organizations? So we always like to become benchmarking. And then we like to try to build partnerships, because we've had situations where we didn't build partnerships where it doesn't work out well. And so we'd say, we look at your plans, now you have multiple plans, and we looked at plans that you have, they haven't been around for years, to be honest with you. When I got in the business, I'm starting to date myself. You come to your comprehensive major medical plans with the copays you have, it's taken me old days when I had a lot more hair, I'll just put it that way. Your Community Blue plan is an awesome plan. Community Blue 1, no deductibles, 100%, the PPO, it's in all 50 states, every hospital in Michigan is an awesome plan. So when I just look at different plans, I think there's things that you could do and still maintain unbelievable benefits. Try to help out the retirees, because I know that's very, very important. They've worked and dedicated their lives to this organization. They've been promised benefits, and I think it's the responsibility of the municipality to honor those benefits. But it's also the responsibility of you to also be fiduciaries of those dollars. And I think there's little changes you could do within Blue Cross, still keep that name, still keep a great network, and still keep great plans, and still benefit everybody. I don't know, is that thumbnail enough, or you want me to go more specific?
I'd like to, I think you guys are ahead of the curve from from reading your last budget, where you are actually pre-funding your OPIB, your retiree liabilities on there. When I noticed that, most of the municipalities across the state, there was that white paper about funding the legacy by Dr. Scorzone down at Michigan State, where I think it was roughly 75% of the municipalities here in Michigan are underneath. And I think when that move puts you ahead of the curve.
Okay.
Just a compliment off of Michael's back end.
Have you done any programs where you did a portion of self-funding with stop loss involved?
Yes, I think one of the things in there, when we talked about what we do and how we quote, Employee Navigator, when we have all the data, what's awesome about that is literally we have all your census data. So within 12 hours, or I'd say less than that, so literally if we have nothing else to do in our office, we could stop and within 10 minutes, we could literally have your census together with all your plan designs ready to quote to the marketplace. And what I mean by quote out to marketplace, we represent every fully insured carrier that's licensed in the state of Michigan. We also represent every self-funded carrier in the state of Michigan. I would say also then we have self-funded just medical only, self-funded medical and prescription, and also self-funded prescription. So I'd say from every funding perspective and every carrier, we represent all of them.
And I would just add to that by saying, you know, our job certainly isn't to come in here and start changing everything, but I think that we need to do our due diligence and show you what's available. And one of the things that we saw very clearly is the way that your current plan is set up. And that current plan was set up for failure from the standpoint of having these issues, you know, at the pharmacy and having these, you know, where if you had a true HRA plan in place, you would see a lot of, you know, not only from the third-party administrator, but from the health insurance perspective itself, I think you'd see a lot of these issues be alleviated.
Any other questions?
I guess, what about contract? Would you be available for contract negotiations? I mean, for...
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's where the benchmarking comes in.
Okay.
Helping out, looking at other communities, with what benefits they offer and the wages to avoid the arbitration hearings.
Okay.
Potentially to avoid the arbitration. Right. Try to, you know, over a copay or a dental network issue.
All
So last question I have for you, if we made the decision that the board decided that they were going to change brokers and go with Franklin Benefits, what happens right now and how fast does it happen?
It can happen immediately by simply signing an agent of record letter that would not change anything from the standpoint of your health insurance or your TPA or how things are being administered. The only thing that it would change would be who's servicing your account. And then once you make that decision, then we would want to make the decision on does it make sense to move forward with the choice strategies for 2016, because we're running out of time to really change the TPA. And I think, as Michael said, that would be the grease fire and also probably a lot of other things if we did that right now. So I think one of the simplest things to do would be make Franklin Benefits your agent of record, and B, do the choice strategies to where we could simplify and really kind of alleviate some of these issues that we're seeing on the front end with your employees.
And you'd be able to do that right away?
Yes.
Yes.
If you sign, let's just say, for example, you sign the letter tomorrow, we would send that letter to Blue Cross and Choice Strategies, and they would immediately make us your agent of record, and then we would be able to immediately start servicing your account.
I don't mean that part. I mean, are we still gonna have problems with our choice cards, like the email he read us?
Can you change it to a one bucket system?
We can change, yes, we can, by the letter that we provided, Dennis, we can change it to the one bucket system
Okay.
As of January 1st.
as of January 1st.
The clock
So-
is ticking now.
All right, so we won't have that type of issue. Okay, so the next question, because, anyway, is, number one, I love that you're in Grand Blanc, first off. I want to tell you that right now. Second, though, are you going to be able to handle, I mean, I don't know how much work a municipality generates for you, but I mean, this is a 100-person.
Yeah. I would say unequivocally the answer is yes. I mean, when I compare ourselves, and there's a local organization, a new client that we acquired last year, the Ennis Center, downtown Flint. They're similar size years, around 100 employees. They did this whole process. I think they interviewed 8 firms. They got it down to 4, and then they got it down to 2. And they said one of the things that we thought was we brought solutions, our knowledge level, and our technology was superior versus firms that had 20 employees, 30 employees, even 40 employees. So I would tell you from our perspective, are we hiring more employees? Are we growing? Absolutely. And municipalities, and I think that's where our technologies even bring it more important, is typically municipalities are a little bit more work. And we have the staff to be able to do it, absolutely.
But I think also, we have several clients that are of your size that may not be municipalities, but, trucking firms and manufacturing organizations that, can be as labor intensive, so.
So you guys will, come and meet with the employees
Yes.
at some point, right?
Yes.
If that's
Yes.
required.
Typically, yes.
And you're user-friendly with Sue.
I hopefully, yes.
I certainly hope so.
Yes, we would like to be. Because again, I think what she's done, and I go back to it, I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation about our passion, trying to help the employees, is we're going to offer all these benefits to them. We don't want to overwhelm her, because I think she is wearing multiple hats, but we want to slowly graduate and say, hey, these are things that we can do and I know do for you, and I know when we did do our presentation with you, I thought you mentioned a couple times, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Sue, but I've never thought about that, or that might work, and things like that. And our process is not to take anything away from her, but to be her assistant through this process and just help your employees.
Okay. Thank you for your, thank you.
So,
Appreciate it. Thank you. You need a card or anything?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Thank you very much, appreciate it. Thank you.
So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Card there, looking good.
Appreciate
it.
So Dennis, good or bad, depending on how you look at it, you were the last group for this evening. It started with, as you know, the process and our biggest concerns that were shared with everybody had to do with customer service issues, primarily with third-party administration. And I think that's what led to the RFPs going out. There were 3 selected to get to this stage, and those were figured as the top 3, and the other 2 have gone before you. The floor is yours.
Excellent, thank you. Well, good evening, it's good to see you all. Let me start by pass out a little piece that we put together. On the floor. Thank you. We have these and those are our executive summaries.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. And thank you.
Okay, so, well, 6.5 years ago, almost 7 years ago, we became your agent. At that time, I think we were discussing around this time of year, close to a savings of $325,000 or something of that nature. And we were reviewing benefits and things of that, so it's good to be back. On the second sheet, or second page of our sheet, we put together a brief little history point. From a history standpoint, in 2009, when we met you were paying about $616.20 a single, $1,386.46 a couple, and $1,663.74 a family. And to this date, one of the things that when I look at this and forecast it 6 years in advance, those policies, or for a single policy, went up 1.16%, and 1.5% on a couple, and 1.66% over the course of the 6 years, or 10% on a family. These, when you look at medical trend and things of those nature, usually when we have discussions with clients, medical trend is anywhere near like 8 to 12%. So this plan's renewed really well. It's done its job with regard to keeping the rate and premiums down. So that was interesting to me. One of the other things too, in 2009 when we met, we were talking about a life insurance rate of about 15 cents per $1,000. To this day, you have not seen one increase on that. We've been able to keep that life insurance rate at the 15 cents. The short-term disability rate at 33 cents. To this day, it's still 33 cents. And the LTD rate, 29 cents. And to this day, 6 years later, it's still at 29 cents. So we've been able to keep these prices down using our marketing pieces. One of the other things that along the way that we talked about was looking at an $82,000 savings with regard to retiree medical. We proposed that about 2 years ago. I personally reached out to all 21 or all 14, somewhere around there, Medicare eligible people that were on the plan, and I talked to them about it. They were interested in it, it just didn't get a lot of traction. The other piece that we talked about, or that we looked at for this year, was roughly about a 12% reduction in dental. We have a carrier that would be interested in looking at your dental insurance and would offer you 12% off your monthly rate. So that would save you some additional money. But I know we're not here to talk about so much these things, but we're here more to talk about card adjudications and what the employee sees and things of that nature. So when we originally set up this program, roughly about 7 years ago, there wasn't really a market, so to say, for cards, for card administration. The card administration that we had, which was our first generation card system, one of the unique pieces of that card system was they would finance your total liability at 10%. And that was very attractive for a lot of groups because they were saying, well, I can insure a $300,000 liability for roughly about $30,000. When we looked at that, we were with that card system for about 4 years. We wanted to bring in a little more technology with the next card system. The next card system had authorized the substantiation piece. And what that means is they were going to look over the shoulder of the user to make sure that when they're swiping their card, they would go ahead and have basically someone looking over their shoulder, making sure that that swipe was what they owed on their explanation of benefits from their carrier. So if $33 were owed from your medical carrier, then you would have somebody looking over your shoulder to make sure that the $33 was paid on your card. And that's what their substantiation piece came into play. We were really interested in that because we wanted to make sure that we didn't have overlapping claims. And we had a lot of members at that time, or some members I should say, that were interested in that type of service. And we were getting approached by a lot of card vendors to basically look at that. And I personally vetted close to 26 companies at that time. We vetted a lot of them. And majority of them were in California, so the time difference was just unbelievable. I was spending a lot of nights at the office talking about card administration. One of the interesting items when it comes to doing these things is it has to fit for the employee. So when we've done education in the past to the employees, we've made sure that they're paying for the explanation of benefits, we're handing out information and materials like that. But we also have a person that's dedicated on our staff to doing just audits. So in the event that a person had an issue with their card, they're calling into Ascend and they're talking to Marie or Lisa, and these people that are then getting a HIPAA certification form. And then we go to work for them once they provide us their username and password, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And then we adjudicate and look at where the process went wrong with that particular member, and then we help them along the way. So that's how that process kind of works. When it comes to the process here, could we make the process a little more efficient? I think so. I think the efficiency would come in if we had substantiation across the board. So if all of the members were substantiated and we offered the whole entire benefit amount up front. So we didn't have like a $2,000 with a $1,000, it would be just a full $3,000. I think that would prevent a lot of the issues because for some of those that have had the issue, it would be less of a stopgap after the 2,000's been spent. They wouldn't have that hiccup for the 1,000.
Now you're talking about the pharmaceutical versus the copay?
Correct. Yep. Because then it would be an automatic switch, and then maybe one of the questions would be that you would ask me is, well, why didn't we switch that into the one bucket system? And that'd be a great question. We have some members that are not substantiated. And for us to audit these accounts, we have to have these buckets set up so they make sense. So the first $2,000 that goes through this card, and then the next $1,000 so I can look at these items in the event that there's a problem and we can make sense of where they went and where they go. So that's
explain unsubstantiated.
Yep. So unsubstantiated means that you don't have the vendor looking over your shoulder and that the employer is authorized that these cards not have basically a process. They're just loaded. And when I could take these cards out, if they're unsubstantiated, it means I don't have to go through this process of looking through the EOBs and adjudicating against the provider of Blue Cross.
So you're saying our cards were unsubstantiated?
There was about 10 or 12 cards that were unsubstantiated, all the rest were substantiated.
So, okay, so they didn't have any bucket? They had one bucket or what?
They had 2 buckets, but they didn't have the vendor, or they didn't have to abide to the vendor saying, okay, let me make sure that you're doing this correctly.
Who stipulates whether they get a substantiated or unsubstantiated?
The employer.
So we give that choice to our employees now, or?
I don't know anything about that either.
Who did this?
This was authorized about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago.
What'd they do? Pick 4 or 5 people and say unsubstantiate them?
Correct.
Do you understand that, sir?
I was not involved in that process.
Okay.
Who was? Because I wasn't.
Keith Edwards asked me to substantiate a number of people.
Do you know why?
At the time, some of the members were having some issues with regard to giving information. They're having some issues with regard to how the format was set up from a privacy standpoint.
I guess, can I just ask a question about these buckets? Because if I understand right, we're the only person, or only entity that has this bucket set up like you're describing, at least with Choice, is that correct?
Yeah, that's what they told us on the phone, is that it's, the rest of the accounts that they deal with only have one, not two.
Yeah, the majority of the choice accounts, all of ours, or majority of ours, have been set up this way.
Yeah, well, Choice is saying all.
Set up with two, you mean?
We've set up with two.
All right, so we're the only one with Choice that you have?
No, we have close to 40 some odd accounts with choice.
And they're all set up the way we are.
We have some that we've set up where they're fully loaded, but they're fully substantiated. So all the accounts are fully substantiated. Now, we have the majority of our accounts that we fully loaded, we started making that migration predominantly this year.
Because there have been a lot of problems here.
I might be missing something, but if we're with Choice, if Choice is telling Mr. Limita that they don't have anybody else set up like us, we're the only group that they have set up with two buckets. Everybody else comes out of one bucket. I mean, and you're saying that's not accurate, or?
Well, we have groups that are not set up that way, so that would not be accurate, because we have groups of choice that have two buckets.
Interesting, okay.
First,
okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
And again, these are some are newer items because ACA, healthcare reform, has brought about this out-of-pocket max, and it hasn't been around that long. So we've kind of used this with regard to incorporating it into the out-of-pocket max.
Do you find it easier to do the one bucket or the two bucket? I mean, for for the employees, is it easier with the one or the two?
Well, it depends. So for a substantiated employee that has somebody that's looking over their shoulder, one bucket, it would be a lot easier. For an employee that has unsubstantiated, one bucket would be problematic because I can't make sense of what is going where. So once they're hitting that contract level, they could exceed the $2,000. And then you may have $250 that is not in the right spot. And we could run over.
Who's this person that authorized the two bucket? I don't know his name. That you mentioned, Pete? somebody?
Yeah. We don't know his name.
Oh, Keith. Oh, they said.
Oh, I thought you were teasing.
Oh, Keith Edwards.
So the other two people that came before you said that one bucket is the preferred way. I mean, so I'm trying to figure out.
If it's substantiated, I would agree with you. But if it's unsubstantiated, then you don't have any controls over those dollars that are being spent.
But it only got unsubstantiated 2.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So why didn't they have one bucket all along from 7 years ago?
Because I know, for instance, I know, for instance, back in 2010, 2009, that we had employees that were having their cards denied on the police side, and there was a whole list of them. And so they'd go for a prescription, and it would be, the money wasn't in the bucket or something. And so this.
Well, I don't know about that, because the prescription's authorized all the way through, whether you're in the first bucket or second bucket, so.
Well, I do know about that.
I do know about that too.
Because that happened when I was on the police side. That happened not only to me, but several command officers as well as several of my detectives. And they would come in and they would ask me, what's up with this card? I went to try to get a prescription and it didn't work. So, I mean, I know that, as sure as I'm sitting here.
Well, I know that we did have a problem with a local pharmacy that it wasn't compliant with the IAS system. So basically what that means is they didn't have their terminal operated. So when you were swiping at that terminal, it was
I don't think it
denied.
was just one pharmacy, because I've talked to a lot of people, including someone who was in Florida when it happened. And there was a woman here, doesn't work here anymore, she had little kids and she couldn't get her prescription because it didn't work. And it didn't work for me at a certain time of year. My prescription thing wouldn't go through. Dennis, has he heard that email? Is that from him? Or-
Yeah, I
He should
shared,
because-
Nancy Stolzen's email.
yeah,
Yeah.
I shared it with him when we had.
And I actually looked into that after we met, and I went through that claim. And that claim issue was a provider that mandated that she pay up front. So there are providers, and this, again, providers is not, this is not a perfect world where these systems kind of work in sync with our system. You're gonna have some situations where the providers are gonna authorize or ask for payment ahead of time, and then you receive your EOB, and your EOB is gonna be less. Because they wanna get paid, I mean, they want their payment up front. And that actually was the case. I actually went through her claim afterwards, because I was familiar with her claim, and I talked to Marie, and we were talking on the way back to my office, and she says, well, I remember that claim. I know exactly who it was, and I know that it was from Nancy, but that provider asked her for additional dollars. And in the case of that, I mean, if someone asks you for $500 up front, and the claim is actually, or the bill is only $350, and she paid the $500, and that's how that transaction went down. So it wasn't necessarily similar to the situation that we're talking about, but I am aware of that.
Well, there's another situation where it was something to do with Blue Cross apparently took the money from the wrong pot and paid a doctor that shouldn't have been paid apparently, and that another doctor wasn't paid because they overpaid this doctor, and then this other doctor was on the line too. And somebody's spouse, they talked to somebody from your office, and they said, go to each of those doctors and get that overpayment and mail it back. And that spouse did that. And why would I ever want to deal with somebody that is having our employees or their wives or their husbands track down money that may have been overpaid through the fault of Blue Cross? Why should the employee do this and not your corporation or your business? And because I will tell you, once you give me your answer, I'm going to tell you what that person said.
Okay. I don't know what that situation is. So I do know this, that last year, in the first quarter of last year, Blue Cross and Blue Shield switched pharmacy benefit managers. When that happened, they were not in sync with the deductible. So if I went ahead and I spent $1,000 of prescription in the first quarter, that didn't apply to my in-network deductible. We had to rearrange, go back to Blue Cross and Blue Shield behind the scenes and say, hey, you didn't apply all these deductibles, so you need to go back and reapply them. So I know that situation happened, and we worked on that for quite some time. But other than that, I don't recall your situation.
Because it was said, it's easier for you to get it. That was the reply. And it might be easier for the employee to do this, but this is one of the reasons that we're, hiring you folks to run this. It's not for the employee to track down if there's a mistake that Blue Cross made to remedy it, correct?
I can't imagine anybody from the staff saying it's easier for you to do this. I don't know the claim that you're discussing, so
Okay.
I would highly doubt that would be their answer.
Okay, well, I wouldn't highly doubt it, but that's fine, that's fine.
I don't know who that person is, so I'd love to know who they talked to
Okay.
at Ascend.
I was told that I was supposed to go get money from an eye doctor and pay it, some of it to a chiropractor, because the eye doctor wasn't supposed to be paid with this. This was a few years ago. There's a lot of these stories out there. It's not just one or two odd ones, there's a lot of them.
Had that situation been a substantiated situation, you would not have been able to swipe it at the eye doctor.
Well, I didn't ask to be substantiated or unsubstantiated.
Because it
This is
wouldn't
a
have gone.
this is a brand new thing. We didn't know anything about, and I don't know unless Sue knew, but I certainly didn't know anything about this unsubstantiated thing, because it's all according, contractually, everybody's supposed to be under the same thing, so they would be breaking the contract.
And there's a lot more than 5 people.
Yeah.
There's about 12, yeah.
Pardon?
There used to be about 12. Yeah. Now there's about
What
10,
do you say?
10 or 9. There used to be 12. I was directed by the manager to do that.
Okay. I'm sorry, we spent on, where this, the questions that people had, so let's go on through this, okay?
Sure. I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions. You want him to continue, Mickey?
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to continue. I mean, I still
That's
will
what I'm
probably have a
saying,
couple questions.
Okay.
No, I'm not cutting off the questions.
Oh, no, right, I get that, I
I'm
get
just
that.
saying,
I agree with you.
we've spent enough time on this, let's
Got
go
it.
on.
So, I know that in July this year, we went ahead and we took a look at the renewal and went through the claims, and I met with Kathy and Sue. From a price standpoint, the policy is doing very well. It is a grandfather policy, and I would report to you that we're expecting a low single-digit renewal come next year. So that would be something that we would be able to look forward to in September. In addition to that, when we were out, we also started talking about a new HR software system that we have put together where the employee would have a portal. And in that portal, the employee would be able to access all of their forms, all of their benefit at a glance items, things of that nature. We're going to be running all of our Affordable Health Care Act notifications through that, all of our, some ERISA compliance and Department of Labor compliance as well. And it also has a unique HR software system that is unique to that software package.
Is this a franchise system, or is it your own system
This is a system that we lease.
that you use?
Correct.
What's the name of it?
It's through Basic.
Basic.
Yep, a company through Portage.
Okay.
We also run your corporate administration through Basic.
Portage, Michigan?
Portage, Michigan, yeah.
Okay.
So we provide the corporate administration costs, we pick that up.
Do you also help us with the reporting on the 6056 and the 6055 forms?
We have the ability to do that. We have a workbook that we share with our clients, and then we would download that at the end of the year.
So what did we do last year on that? Did you guys do that? Or
We didn't have to report last year.
Okay, so this is the first year?
Yep.
Okay.
So that report's already been downloaded to Sue then?
We had to complete the workbook.
So Sue got the workbook, or you completed it?
No, we can't complete the workbook because you have the information.
Right, so you gave it to Sue then, right?
Yeah, the workbook is available, I think during this whole process,
When does that have to be submitted to the IRS by?
in February.
Okay.
So you got the workbook, Sue?
To be honest with you, the BSNA system is going to handle our 1095s and 1094s. So if there is anything, it's already in the payroll system.
Right.
I've already started the process of putting the codes in. So having it on an additional system, quite frankly, to me, means doing it all over again. So it has not been a point of focus for me because it's in BSNA payroll.
Right, okay, I just want to
And I've
clarify.
attended training through BSNA and I have assistance from them.
Right.
And we spoke about that in our meeting in July, or June.
Anything else you want to tell us about, or that we should know?
Well, I was gonna save some time for additional questions, because I think we may have that. We do insure, you know, a good number of your neighbors and whatnot. They are on similar systems.
Municipalities, you mean?
Correct.
Do they have unsubstantiated people?
No.
So Dennis, why don't you address for the board certification then that, are we the only ones that you've had the problems with, unsubstantiated and unsubstantiated? Do you have any other clients that you have issues that are similar to what we've gone through?
I do not have anybody else unsubstantiated.
Okay.
Or split. It's been difficult to have that split because it's borderline discriminatory, so.
So you're aware of why, you know, the board's frustration level really had to do with the customer service level, and you've heard multiple examples of what we went through from an employee or member standpoint that led to the frustration, that really led to the RFPs that brought us here tonight. If the board is faced with a decision now on selecting a broker, whether we remain with Ascend Group or we select one of the others who have presented tonight, if the board were to make the decision to remain with Ascend Group and move forward, how will you address our concerns moving forward?
Sure. So I would like to not have two split pieces with regard to an unsubstantiated group and a substantiated group. In addition to that, I would feel very comfortable at that point in time, and my recommendation to the board would be, let's move into one bucket, so to say. I think that would be a good move, and it would help some of the employees.
I think okay. You said that now you have 12, okay, from the original that are now out unsubstantiated. And Keith left almost a year ago, so how did these new ones come out?
I think there was 12 originally, and I think it's down to 9.
I have a question. Did you know about this, Dennis? This unsubstantiated group?
I didn't hear about this until I had a conversation with Dennis after our last presentation.
So, if everybody goes in one bucket, and you know, all the money goes into that one bucket for each person, is that going to eliminate completely this card being denied at a pharmacy?
If the pharmacy is in compliance with IAS and that terminal is functioning the way it's supposed to function.
Okay, let's assume we're talking like Rite Aid or Walgreens, some of the bigger ones.
Yeah, some of the bigger chains.
Right.
It would eliminate probably 90% of it. And here's the reason why. If you have a provider or you have a person that says, I have a bill for $300 and they paid $500 and they're not looking at this card system or using it the way that they were instructed to use it, they're going to get a letter and they're going to say, you overpaid by $200. And at that point in time, if that member wants to throw that information out, then you're going to have a $200 issue on your hands. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to move to substantiated amounts, so we could help the member rather than waiting towards the end of the year and have them have an issue. So when we went to our second card system, that was the exact reason why.
You're talking choice?
Yeah, with choice. Because originally we were with PBS.
Yes, I understand.
So my understanding of this is that You go to your doctor's office, you give him the Blue Cross card. He will then submit a bill, submit it to Blue Cross, and Blue Cross will then send you the statement, and then the doctor will send you any copay. And that, at that point, you would use the choice card and put in the code in the form, right?
16 digits
Right.
into the form.
Right.
Assuming that it's not the estimate, because what a doctor's office usually does is they'll send out an estimate while they're waiting to get the paperwork back from Blue Cross and Blue Shield to say, hey, this is what my deductible amount is.
But you don't pay until you get the paperwork from Blue Cross. I mean, that's the
correct.
standard.
Yeah, that's correct. But in Nancy's case, she had to
You can't-
pay.
Shouldn't be saying names.
Right.
Okay, well, in
That
that case that we discussed earlier in the email, she was forced to by the provider in order to get services. So at that point in time, I understand why she did what she did, because she wanted to have the service done. So that's how that, so if the card format was used the way that it was intended to, the reason why I say 90% is you're gonna have a provider occasionally that is just not cooperating with how this is supposed to go. We see it, here and there. That's why I have a person who's dedicated to helping people at my office for this very instance, because we have so many of these accounts.
Do you keep a list of those that are, so that Sue could know if there were places that people shouldn't go for their pharmaceutical problems?
Well, at one point in time, we actually called one of the pharmacies that was having an issue. And visited, and we spoke to them about that piece, and then they attempted, and one of their reasons why is they said, hey, this software cost me close to $2,500 for me to buy, and I didn't know I was gonna need it. And then we reiterated and said, well, hey, we have township employees coming here, so it'd be a good idea if you install it, because we don't want to turn them away from the establishment. So that was one of the reasons, or a good example of how that would work. But you have an occasional provider out here that is going to say, hey, in order to get services, I need $500 tonight. And that's the crux.
Okay.
So, Dennis, the person that, it was Marie, according to, that spoke, told, actually my wife to go take the money from the doctors. So, you can ask her about that, because I just asked my wife.
I'll ask her about it tomorrow, for sure. I'll investigate it.
And the problem that I have is that these little things pop up, and they pop up, maybe once or twice a year. I had, I think, 2 years where I didn't have any issues, which I was very happy, but I had a couple issues throughout the time, and it's very frustrating. It is very, very frustrating to be on this end and have somebody, say, you go contact the doctor. And then not only that, I have police employees, because I actually see them, that have issues with this, and they're frustrated. And then, as a board member, I'm trying to look out for their interests.
I understand that, and I've had a lot of contact with Chief Stam. I go over to the police department to make sure that there's no claims issues that need to be cleaned up and whatnot. So I have made quite a few visits. If you would ask him about that, that would be great. In addition to that, the last time we were here, I brought Marie here, and we parked ourselves in the other room, and I think we were here for about 3-4 hours at tops, but I think we saw like 3 people. So we were waiting for some people to come in. A lot of these things can be user errors where they made a mistake and they haven't responded to the literature that's being sent to them. And all of a sudden it's too late because they've run out of money or they've had something happen. And the system's working according to the way it should work. If you're getting information letters, just reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to help you. In that particular case, Marie spoke to that officer's wife probably about 2-3 weeks ago just to make sure everything was going fine. I can't tell you, when we were there, I understand how when you don't have something working correctly, but I also understand that if you're getting information sent to you, you need to reach out to somebody to kind of get some help. So when we were here, we cleaned up her situation in a matter of about 10, 15 minutes. And I'm Marie and her talk on the phone probably once a quarter, because she was elated with how that worked out. So through education, they could be, and we've done quite a bit of education here. At one point in time, we even brought about a walking program. We brought in a person from Blue Cross and Blue Shield to do these things. But I think part of the issue, or why it's been difficult in the past, is we've had a lot of different management here, and that's been kind of difficult for us. Over the course of the 6.5 years, we've seen 4 managers, or 3 managers. So there's been a break, and that's hard as well to administer programs. And again, these are the people that I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis with these programs. We're trying to make these things work, but then all of a sudden, when your contact's gone, and
Or they're instructing you to do something that
You shouldn't be doing, maybe.
isn't the wishes of the board.
Yeah.
doing.
or
And when you're in township government or any type of government, it's a given that boards and managers are gonna change, so seems like you'd want some stability across the whole way for people that are 20, 30-year employees here.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And when I reached out to the Medicare retirees, I mean, it's a perfect example. I personally called all 21 of them and said, hey, would you be interested in this product? I'm talking to you about this product. I'd be more than happy to meet with you about this product. I think it would be a great fit for you. I think it'd actually make your life a little easier.
Right.
And actually, I think I spoke to your husband at one point in time. Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was another employee, I apologize, that I spoke to, and he called me probably once a year. We talked about Tiger baseball for about an hour, and told him I had to go back to work. So it's interest there. It's just when there's a break in management, and then all of a sudden that gets pushed to the back, and it's made this kind of difficult. And we've been here for 6.5 years, 7 years. You see 3 or 4 people, 5 people go contact-wise. That's very difficult.
That's government. No, it's not.
We've had a little more consistency in some of our other governmental accounts.
Well, we can't help that.
Right. We got the guy we like. We want him to be a 10-year employee.
Yeah.
So that,
You okay?
Okay.
Anybody else have any?
I got mine answered.
Okay.
I do have one real quick one.
Okay.
I'm going back to this unsubstantiated thing. You said that's been going on 2.5 years.
unsubstantiation, I don't remember the exact date, but I know there was about 12 people that was.
All at once? He just gave you a list, or he would call you up every couple days or every couple months and say, add this one?
It was on an email.
A list of all of them at one time?
I believe there was 9 or 10 that was on that original list, or I don't remember the number, but there was.
Did he give a reason?
They were having difficulties, or they didn't want to share that information
okay.
from a privacy standpoint.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
With the vendor.
Yeah.
That was their issue.
Okay. I'm good.
Was he one of them?
He was.
Okay.
No other questions? The board is going to probably have a little bit of conversation this evening, but it's an open meeting. You're welcome to stay, although in fairness, all of the other agents who came through and made their presentations have left for the evening. I don't know how the board feels about you guys hanging out while they have their discussion, but I will leave that to the board.
Well, it's an open meeting, I'm not telling anybody.
Right, no.
Meeting,
Okay.
but we're ready to start discussing, right?
Unless you have anything else you'd like to add, Dennis or Doug.
We appreciate being here and we appreciate your business.
Okay, thanks.
We'd like to be here moving forward. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Take over now, Dennis, please.
Sure. So, you know, I left your narrative at your place is just to kind of talk and walk us through, you know, how we got here. And I mean, you heard most of it tonight. You know, it's the RFPs. And when I got here, August 24th, I think it was about a week or two into it when Chris brought me a mountain of boxes about 2 foot high and said, here.
They're coming in.
Here's the healthcare RFPs. So it took us a while to try to understand what the biggest concerns were and why the board elected to go out for RFPs. So I asked a lot of questions, and it ended up boiling back down to the fact that the biggest reason that we sought RFPs in the first place were because of customer service issues. And I will say that our current Ascend group, I mean, when you talk to our payroll and benefits coordinator, will tell you that they have been good to work with from her perspective. So that's not the customer service issues. The actual people that we worked with there from an administrative side were very professional and good to work with. We did let them know that when we were going through the proposals, but it kept going back to, and I used one example all night, but I could have used 12. I have 12 or 18 of them that I collected over the course of trying to find out why we were doing this. So in the end, we got 6 RFPs in. All of the proposals were varying degree, but from the initial read through, and I asked Director Kathy Zostak to read through as well, and then Earl, and then we brought in Sue kind of later as we're getting ready into our presentations. But we pretty much agreed that there were 4 front runners, and we started with the presentations with those 4. After those 4, we eliminated 1. We had talked about getting down to 2, and then agreed that, you know what, we think that the 3 that were before you this evening were 3 very well qualified candidates to be our broker. Ascend Group, certainly you always give the opportunity to your current broker to make that presentation. I think that from a committee standpoint, we looked at the other 2, with Franklin coming in and being much more technology driven. You could feel it, and maybe a younger company, very much technology driven, but they get it and how it fits in with our business. I think when you looked at Security First, they came in like a well-worn pair of jeans. They were comfortable. They came in, they know our business, they were able to make that presentation that way because they knew us intimately, they knew us well. And that presentation came across that way. They know our business. And we certainly had a good relationship with them for about 10 years. We made that change 6 years ago. I wasn't privy to why we made the change. The only thing that even the Ascend Group brought to the table was that it was, they came in and made a presentation, and there was a cost savings involved. They saved us money, and that was when the change was made. Security felt bad. They felt like they didn't have a fair shot to make their presentation back at that time that it occurred, and they were really hoping that they were going to get the opportunity here, and they did. I think that security was very comfortable. They have a good group. They have a strong group of folks. They were newer to the technology side with the HR 360 and the Employee Navigator, and I won't discount that because even though we sent out the RFPs based upon customer service issues, though the technology being driven into the marketplace due to the Affordable Care Act reporting and things like that becomes more important. It also is a benefit to us because when you look at the burden that's placed on primarily one person with Sue Saylor as our payroll and benefits coordinator, but there's a lot of things that go involved, and what we can use that Employee Navigator for is onboarding or offboarding employees. We can download our entire employee manual in there. We can have policies in there, and then if you want to make sure that everyone has acknowledged that they've seen them, it's a simple, hey, you're all required to log in, go to that portal, You have to check the box, and then we have a record at all times that we can print out and say every one of our employees has acknowledged, so there's never a question about, well, I didn't know the policy existed, or I didn't know that that was in the employee manual. It protects us legally, which is a good thing. We can generate reports, which is a good thing. There's a lot of things from a communication standpoint, from wellness ideas to all kinds of things that comes into play. So from an administrative side, we like the concept of HR 360 and Employee Navigator. But both Franklin and Security offer it. Ascend Group offers something. Theirs is basic Guru, similar, but just a different strategy. It appears that more HR 360 and Employee Navigator is more widespread. I'm familiar with Employee Navigator from my prior employer. So I'm familiar with it, and I think it's a good system. But at the end of the day, you've just seen 3 presentations from 3 very qualified groups, all offering you a little bit of different something. If we make a change right now, the end, if we're concerned about it being sticky, as we talked about last week, Franklin Benefits has worked harder than anybody else to earn our business. They are the ones who, that's how we found out about the 2-bucket versus 1-bucket system, because they, asked to get, an authorization letter so they could contact Choice Strategies to try to help work through the issues we were going through. Risky on their part, because they could have solved the issue for us, and we say, well, all we got to do is have a Ascend Group go to the 1-bucket system, and there we've solved our customer service issues, and we can move forward. And that's certainly an option available to the board. But I think that you saw 3 very different presentations by 3 capable companies, and it's a tough decision. I know who I would go with, but it's not up to me to make that decision. It's up to you guys to make that decision. So, I've got Kathy here and Sue here. Megan was in on all of them, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have as far as where the presentations went. Earl was in every single presentation as well, so he brought it from a board's perspective, which was good. I think as a committee, we're wide open for any questions you guys may have to help with your deliberations.
Yes, Scott?
Do you see any impediments with any of them, or any pluses with any of them that would be easier for any of the 3 of you to work with? Or?
Changing is always a challenge, right? It's always easier to stay status quo, especially when it comes to employees' health care. Double you know versus double you don't know. I will say that with Franklin Benefits, because of the homework that they've done and even the letter they provided, I signed this and turned it in. They're going to submit it to Choice Strategies. They're the new agent of record. Choice Strategies goes to the 1-bucket system. They will issue new cards, according to Eric from Choice Strategies, but he'll have them here by the 1st of the year. They will be loaded into 1-bucket, and like I said, Dennis disagrees, but when I spoke with Eric, he was telling me that he doesn't have any other issues with, as an account manager that he deals with, that we're the only ones that he's aware of, and he said it was required by, the Ascend Group said it was required by the employer, us. I know that Franklin, we signed that, we move forward. There's no cost savings in right now. I mean, there isn't with any of them, really. We're going to change brokers and we move forward. That will come later. So, and one of the things you guys have to take into consideration is, who do you think can help us next year in negotiations? Who do you think can help us as we move forward? Who's going to offer the best solutions to maybe savings in offering different plans, offering maybe a different twist on retiree health care? I mean, you kind of heard everybody touch on it a little.
Well, on the retiree health care, the Security First is the one that brought it up, and they would look at that. What I do like about the second group with Franklin is they're local, but I also am impressed that they did some homework with Choice, and that they got the letter of authorization and spoke with them and found out what some of the issues were there. So.
But I believe Security First, they didn't have the authorization letter, but they did check it out, and they did say we were going to a 1-bucket system with Choice to get through it, so it's seamless to everybody. So they did do research, but not as much. They're not qualified or whatever, because they couldn't ask the questions, but they said, okay, we need to have this system on a 1-bucket system, because they knew that's what it had to be to eliminate the problems. And, so to me, they've done work with Choice. They've talked to them. Not to the extent that the other one did, but general to say, that's the way it can go. We can't go with our third-party provider, because it's not gonna happen, it can't happen that quick. But they've already researched all the other third-party providers and say, this is the best one. And what really impressed me was that they said they had, you know, a $10,000 drug thing for that one person, and the person researched it and says, okay, you're not gonna pay those deductibles anymore, you're gonna pay nothing. And so I think that they're gonna save us a lot more with that third-party provider, because they researched it and said, this is the guy we want. Or Franklin Benefits is gonna do the research later. These guys have already done it, they picked this company, and they're gonna stay with it. So I'm really impressed with the security first.
That was at Aaron, Eric, ER.
That's Security First.
EHIM.
EHIM. Right. Because we haven't heard that from anybody else, that they're gonna look at every one of those things and say, okay, this drug is just as good or whatever, and maybe you should look at that, and then that's direct savings to us, because we are paying for those deductibles.
I am familiar with that in that Diplomat, for example, from a family member that works there. If somebody has a $6,000 a month prescription, a lot of times they will have a foundation, or the drug company
Yeah.
itself will actually fund it for them. So that's fairly common, but you're right, the Security First is the only one who mentioned it.
Yeah, so they've got the
presentation.
short term and the long term all figured out already, so. Plus, they already mentioned where they're gonna make the savings. They already said there was certain things on the retirement side, as well as they said self-funding. They also have the stop loss and a specific loss and the other loss. They've got it all figured out. They know exactly how it's gonna be done.
Well, and I haven't made up my mind yet, but I'm just thinking out loud here. But Security First, very large. The Franklin group might be smaller, but they're very eager to get our business, it seems. So there's some, give and take there too.
Well, absolutely.
I'd be interested to hear the other board members' opinions as well.
I think they were both really, really good. Both of those, not the third one at all, I wouldn't even
No.
consider it. But the first two, they were so good, but they were quite different. And so that's why it's hard to compare, because it's not like apples to apples, oranges to oranges. You get a real, it might be like the same product, but you get a real different company with whichever one you go with. I was super impressed that he came and brought that letter signed. I thought that was amazing. So we could start up flawlessly right away with no problems, none of the stickiness. I like Security First too, though. I like that they're a big company, that they've got a lot of people in it, and that they've been doing a lot of business. This is kind of a small company, the other one, but they were eager. So I will go with either of them, depending on what Sue, Kathy, and Dennis say, and Jude and Scott.
But I will tell you, I thought they were both, I liked both Security First and I liked Franklin. Franklin struck me as lean, and that they they were into technology. And Dennis, your analogy, I think, was perfect when you said Security First was like a well-worn jean. I mean, they felt comfortable. And I really like the stop loss aspect.
Yeah.
But again, I was pretty dang impressed that Franklin brought that letter and took some real initiative. And I find myself very conflicted, because they both are going to offer this, pretty much the same thing. Better than what we have.
Better than what we have.
Right.
So, can we hear from...
Nikki, what's your thoughts?
Well, I again liked both of them. I was interested in the stop loss and the drug deal that you were talking, the area, whatever it was, and other thing that I was impressed with was the guy that was on the national board.
Yes, that was.
That you had information immediately on any new things that you had to work on. And
that was the guy.
That was security first,
Security
correct?
first.
security first, yeah. And those three things, right,
Yeah,
I was impressed with.
Yeah, right.
Okay, those were my 3 points with that.
Mhm.
And, you know, just the fact that we know them, okay? And again, they're both local. I was impressed with everybody from Franklin except the older guy, the legislative guy, okay? I didn't think he had that much to offer, but the rest of them, I was very impressed, especially with Stacy. I thought
She was great.
had a whole lot to offer, and Mike too. I mean, the fact that they followed through. And so, I think that they're anxious to get our, you know, that they will continue to work hard, okay, to keep our business.
Yeah.
And the fact it's so much easier to change on a year basis, that they have that ready so they could do, you know, could be the agent right away. So I'm conflicted too, because I really, they both have assets.
And those letters, that letter that you brought,
Mhm.
Security First,
Yeah.
that's pretty typical. They can send one tomorrow to the company.
Right.
And that's pretty standard, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
nice that you brought it.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The main
Did you
thing is
have
to
a
figure
question,
out
Kathy?
the percentage of the results. Right.
Having been on the board when we got I was on the board when we changed to your current carrier from security. And the reason we did it was because they brought new information, new programs, and saved us megabucks. And they apparently have through the course of your 3 years that you've been here. So that was one of the major reasons we went with them. So if you're looking at, or two of the things you should look at, is not only your impressions of their presentation, but whether or not you think they're going to bring to the employees and to the employer, the township, the quality products that your current provider has brought, which saved us money, which was the reason we changed, because the cost of healthcare was just going, you know, right into the atmosphere. And so they did bring us a significant containment of cost. So whoever you get, make sure they not only do the customer service, but that they bring you the quality products at a very affordable price for the employer and for the employee.
I think that that's been substantiated already.
I'd be curious what our staff,
Mhm.
if they have any opinions.
From my standpoint, those are my top 2 firms as well, Franklin Benefits and Security First. I was very impressed with Franklin Benefits because of the technology aspect. I said they just seem very aggressive, and if that's, you know, indicative of the service they provide, will provide in the future, you know, I guess I'm trying to, relating those, and I think that, you know, they would do a good job for the township. Security First, like you said, everybody's very comfortable with. They do know the township, so they do have some advantages too. Franklin Benefits did mention, they mentioned this back when we did the interviews as well, that they're not locked into any TPA at this point in time. They would go out and shop and find the best one for the township. So I think that, you know, it may be Choice Strategies, it may be somebody else, but I think that they would try and, you know, find something that would truly work well for the township. But yeah, I mean, I think both of them were, you know, quite impressive companies, so.
Okay, so you're no help either.
If you're asking for my top choice, I would say
One way or the other.
It's really difficult because I have a relationship with the staff at the Ascend Group, which I was not anxious to sever because I have a good working relationship with the Ascend Group. When the employees come to me, I can direct them, I can help, I can advise the employee, and things get taken care of, because things are always going to happen. And a lot of the times, it's the employee's fault, okay? The discussion about the unsubstantiation and the two bucket comes as news to me. I was aware of, after the fact, I can't say the word, I know what I'm talking about. I was unaware of it at the time that it happened. I was aware of it after the fact, but I was unaware of the consequences of that. That's very distressing to me if that is indeed the cause of our problem. Everything that Dennis Doley said tonight is absolutely true, though. We had a major pharmacy in town that didn't have the software system. A huge majority of our employees went to that pharmacy, could not get their prescriptions filled because they did not have the software. I mean, all these things that Dennis talked about are things that happened and reflect badly on the insurance agent because, you know, the employee then has a problem. I'm conflicted because I like the technology aspect that the Franklin is offering, but it's the same system that Security First has. It's the exact same software. Dennis Doley from the Sun Group has offered us the software, and due to management issues, we did not do anything about getting software on board. Same with the retiree issue. You know, that again is no fault of our insurance agent, that is the fault of the issues that we've had internally here. So a lot of the problems that we have are not the fault of the insurance agent. He unfortunately becomes the Greek messenger in this case. All that being said, I'm conflicted.
Okay. Dennis has an opinion.
Okay, so,
Part of the problem with being an incumbent is you have a track record, and that's the problem with the Sun Group.
absolutely.
We don't know the other devils.
And that's why we moved all three forward, right? I mean, realistically, I'm in all seriousness, when I say you have three brokers before you who can all do a good job. Unfortunately for the Ascend Group, they have baggage, you know, and they bring it, and I feel like I didn't get the information. That very first presentation, they should have walked in and said, we've researched it, it's this whole substantiated, unsubstantiated. We didn't hear another agent talk about substantiated versus unsubstantiated. We didn't hear that that was an issue for us. We saw feigned surprise that there were issues, and I think that's the part for me that turned me off. It frustrated me because I thought, just own it. It's okay, you know, own it, call it out, tell me what it is, and then we can see if we can fix it. And I didn't feel like I got that. You know, when you like what you liked about security, the self-funded, you know, hey, let's do this, look at specific stop loss and aggregate stop loss and how that works. These guys are good at talking products because of that experience, but a big part of it, don't forget, is because they know us. They were here for 10 years. That does give them a leg up. It would have been really hard for Franklin Benefits to come in and talk about, you know, some of the things that security did because they don't have the information. They don't have any of that information. Security's got it. They know. I mean, we're a pretty stable workforce. We keep people around a long time. They could base it off the information they had, and that gave them a perceived leg up, but they had better information. When it came time to talk about choice strategies, I mean, they didn't know about the 2-bucket, 1-bucket thing. He learned that tonight by looking at me when he was up there talking. And, you know, somebody said, well, can you go to 1 bucket? He looked at me and I said, yeah. Right. So they hadn't done so much research into it as to, you know, hey, I mean, if we got to stick with choice, we can. One of the things that Franklin brings to the table is they'll tell you, we'll work with whatever third-party administrator makes the most sense based on your plan specifics. And we'd love to be able to come back in. Normally when they do proposals, they're going to come in and say, we're going to do a complete review. Here's where we can propose to save you money. Hey, as employees start to having to pay 20% of their overall healthcare costs, we can offer, you know, 10 plans and give the employee the opportunity to choose what that's going to be. Saves the township money, saves employees money, makes them more vested in their healthcare. But they couldn't really do that right now because during this, you know, go around, we told them, we're going to keep Blue Cross Blue Shield, Flex Blue, we want this. We're more concerned about the TPA. Can we change that third-party administrator right now? Does that make sense? Security is married with EHIM. They work together very well. And EHIM has a great reputation. There's no doubt about it. But Franklin can work with EHIM. It was one of the ones that was listed on their list of who they work with.
That's what I wondered.
They work with, they don't tell you that they only work with one third-party administrator. They work with a third party, like, you know, it was kind of funny when security came in and pitched us, they brought in this guy Donovan from EHIM who said, I've never heard of any problems like this. This would never happen with us. We'll make it go away. But he said, when we bid this, you know, we came in at $15 per member per month. What do you pay? I said, we pay $7 per member per month. He's like, well, we're not going to get anywhere near that, but maybe we could get it down to 10, you know, for the first year. My concern is that they can get it down to 10 for the first year, and the second year it goes up, and the third year it goes up, because they typically charge $15 per member per month. Talking to Franklin Benefits about third-party administrators, they say most of them charge $450 to $550 per month, but we've seen it as high as, you know, $12 to $15. You know, there's such a wide range in there, but you pay it on the front end, you pay it on the back end. I mean, you're somewhere. It's all about the bottom line is how much are they saving you, and right now it's not so. I mean, security gave us 4 options, I believe, in their proposal that shows if we make some changes. But one of the things with changing with security is that it's a full change. We're you know, completely changing. They want to move us to the EHIM. They said, well, we can take a look at choice, but that's, you know, it's not going to happen at this stage of the game because they haven't been ramped up to move. Franklin is ramped up, like sign this, give it to them. We have new cards issued by the 1st and we're good to go. I mean, that's the benefit to Franklin right now is it's a seamless transition.
For the sake of discussion, I'm going to make a motion
Okay.
that we make Franklin Benefits our endorsed, or our agent of record, I should say, for Grand Lake Township's healthcare program.
Okay, but I thought we were having a discussion. But
No, we can
okay,
discuss.
I'll make that,
We
write
can
down.
discuss
We
it.
can still discuss
If I
it,
can
but
get a
I put a
second, we
motion
can
out there, so-
discuss, okay?
Well, yeah, for the sake of, I'll support for the sake of discussion.
Okay.
Right.
Dennis,
So, let's
who are you leaning
discuss.
toward?
Yeah, great.
You leaning toward Franklin?
I would.
Well, the thing that helps me lean is they're in Grand Blanc. I mean, if somebody's even and one of them is in Grand Lake Township, it's just like, you know, when we shop for vehicles, if there's a chance that we can buy it here in Grand Blanc, I'm gonna, even if, you know, it's $100 more, I'd rather have the tax dollars go to our community and what have you, and employment and everything else, so that's one consideration. And it's a big consideration, but I think both those companies, you know, are good companies. We won't go wrong.
Yeah, they're both about a mile away,
Yeah.
you know, one way or the
Well,
other.
Security First is in Flint, right?
Huh? No, it's Burton.
Burton.
So, yeah, but,
Well,
but, you
the other
know,
one's in Grand Blanc.
The other one's, right, and like I said, I like that.
but if you look at how many of the staff lives in Grand Blanc, okay, there's more from security than.
That's probably true.
That could be true. Just by virtue of the
Bigger
size of the
staff.
staff. True.
So, go ahead, you were.
Go ahead.
You know, I have a suggestion, and I think everybody's gonna hate it, but I like it.
Okay.
But I am wondering if we could bring just those 2 back for the full board in January. And I know it's gonna be cumbersome, I get it, but those guys, both of them were, I think this is gonna be close. And I think I'd like the benefit of the other 2 to sit in and say, Security First or Franklin, you know, and because that could make a difference, because this could be a 3-2, or theoretically vote. So I don't know what you think about that, Scott.
Well.
Well, actually, it's on tape, they can view the tape, I guess.
Yeah, they can view the tape.
They're both supposed to be.
That The only
Get
thing
started
about
up by
that,
the
Judy,
first
is
of
that
the
it
year.
cuts off
Plus
the
they defer
year to
to
year,
us.
you know, your transition.
Creates a lot of.
I know, I know, I get it would be cumbersome, a little more cumbersome, but I think their plan year starts in September anyway, doesn't it? Or,
Well,
The deductibles reset on the first, so from the benefits card, the third-party administration end of it, which was creating all the thing, that resets January 1.
January 1st.
I would rather get it over with, not because I'm trying to be expedient, but I'm not sure.
We've learned anything new, because we all can, we like them both.
Yeah,
That's how I feel.
their assets aren't going to change.
This will help. I don't think there's a wrong decision.
I don't either, I really don't. Like I said, I'm very conflicted. We have I think both of those people would do far superior than what we've been having.
And in security's favor, they were here for a long time. And they kind of got the shaft because they weren't given the same information that they had to provide that the other people provided. And
No, that's what I heard.
That's what I heard.
That's true.
that's what we all heard.
So they were our
Three of us.
provider for a number of years.
Yeah, and then Donald brought
I
his
heard that one.
friend
right
from
after
Bay
the
City is
meeting.
what we heard.
And we switched without the board really reviewing it? or-
Well,
They
we-
asked for an
we-
RFP. Well,
Actually,
no.
we tried to
Yeah.
have them present their bid comparable to,
Mhm.
because they weren't told the same information, okay? And say, submit your portion, and we wouldn't do it because they said, no, they had a chance. They had one chance, and even though it wasn't completely clear, they didn't tell security to do it. They just said, they just picked security's brain to give it to the other group, basically. And then the other group presented it, but the other one wasn't on paper, it was just lunches and things like that. So, it wasn't very professional.
And from what I heard, our employees had no trouble, right? Because
No trouble.
because they would always get on it right then if there was an issue.
The guy from Security First would come right to the
Yes.
township.
Yes.
Right.
And it
So-
was the Steve Bible.
Guys are making it more
Steve
difficult.
guy.
Yeah. Yeah, because he would probably still be here for that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
don't forget
Right.
that.
Right.
Sam was what Dunnell had
Mhm.
where he was
Big
before.
city.
Okay.
So.
So we're back to where we started.
Let's get those other
So-
two here.
It's where the rubber meets the road.
I was trying to get us off the dime. but,
Yeah.
I
Dennis?
think, did you have something, Tim?
I have worked with all of the companies in helping put the RFPs into something more simple for our committee to look at. And I feel like I already have a connection with Franklin Benefits because I've gotten phone calls from Stacy and emails from Mike. Before we had our first presentation, they wanted to come in, you know, the Friday before they presented that Monday to see the area that they were presenting in. They gave, you know, calls after the presentation to see how things were going, if they needed anything else, if we needed anything else. And just seeing them, I feel like I already have like a connection with them and them calling. And I feel like security is also great as well. They're, like you said, they're two different people. Yeah, you have a small group that wants to help and goes the extra mile. Ever since we told them, hey, we want to meet with you, they went that extra mile and said, we want to see where we're going to meet you. We want to see what we need to bring and things like that. Then you have security who has been working for 40 plus years, since, you know, 1924, and they know their stuff. So it's, I mean, like Dennis said, whichever way you go, it will be a good way. It just depends on what you guys want.
This is exactly what happened with the superintendent. Honest to God, we had two great people, and it was like apples to oranges. You could not compare the two, but they were both great. You won out. You must
Well,
be the
then,
apples.
you clearly have great decision-making.
Yeah. But it was the very same thing. You can't really find flaws with them, with either.
Okay, I'll ask you, Dennis. You're going to be, okay, one, there's a chance that there won't be any of us, the rest of us here after next year, okay? You're going to be the one that's going to be stable in this area.
Me and Scott are gonna be here.
I'm just saying, I said there's a possibility, okay? And so,
I know, I'm just kidding.
so anyway, I just, that it's just in my mind, which one?
If I had to vote, Supervisor Hoffman, if I had to make a vote, I would vote for Franklin Benefit Solutions. And my logic behind it is, I could, if you guys made the decision to go with security, I would be just as happy. I think that we're going to get a great product and great service from these folks. We already know that they're tried and true and trusted. But with Franklin, I see a young company that worked harder than anybody to earn the right to make the presentations, to earn our business. If they provide customer service at the level that they've exhibited in making their presentation to us, they're going to be a fantastic company to work with. That's where I give them the nod. I mean, it was the little things. It was, like I said, we wouldn't have known. We might not even been talking about the 1 bucket, 2 bucket, substantiated, unsubstantiated, if it wasn't for them going the extra mile to contact Choice Strategies. They could have said, yeah, we're just, if it's a third-party administrator, we're going to find a different one for you. They took that risk because it is a big risk. And I told them that when they made the recommendation to me on the phone that this is where they were leaning. I said, then you guys should know something. We're changing brokers because of issues with our third-party administrator. And you've just called me and you're saying that you're going to work with them for the first year. You might not be here in 2017. And that's a risk you're taking. And they said they understood that, but they believe strong enough in their customer service that they can work through any of those issues, and it won't be back on our employees, and you guys aren't going to be getting the phone calls and the emails that you have been getting up till now.
Okay, well, we have a motion and support.
Security First did the same thing. They're going with Choice. They committed to it. So they took the gamble too, because they know it's infeasible to switch. Both of them know that. They're both smart parties, okay? So, we're going to do a roll call vote now?
I don't know, do you want a roll call? 5 people?
I don't need a roll
I
call.
don't care.
Yeah, I think we should have a roll call.
Okay, Scott, Franklin,
Yes.
this is Franklin. I'll say yes. Mrs. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Guzik?
No.
Dr. Reardon? This doesn't even matter, but I'm going to go with no. I'm going to go with no, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't. But and I just because I like them both a lot.
So it'll be a 3-2 split.
Right.
Makes sense. Well, it's Franklin.
Make a motion to
Adjourn?
authorize the superintendent to sign that letter for the agent of record. And
I'll make that motion.
I think they included that.
I need a second.
Well, to authorize Dennis, okay.
Okay.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Oh, you just put that in there. That, okay.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
We probably need a separate motion, so
Right.
I'll support it.
Okay.
Okay.
All
So,
in favor?
Jude made it?
Yeah, I made it.
Scott?
Aye.
One of the things that I think we might want to look at, and, it goes towards part of our conversation that we had with Ascend, was, that they were told to make a change that we weren't aware of as board members, or,
Yeah.
because evidently it occurred in the last 2.5 years, according to
That's what I'm finding out, yeah.
And I don't know, I know our current township manager would come to us with anything like that. But
Right.
thinking out, if Dennis weren't our township manager, what do we do to prevent that kind of thing from happening? I'm not sure if it's some type of, statement that we provide to ongoing vendors that state that, changes to this agreement should only come from our board of directors. Something along those lines, so that if we have a vendor, and I'm not speaking of Dennis being our man, I'm just saying generically, that changes can't be made to different agreements, what have you, even if it's a union contract, without having board authorization.
Well,
Because we find out after the fact, unfortunately.
Well, in general, I agree with you, in general, but I think we don't, we hired Dennis to make these decisions,
Right.
those type of decisions, because I don't want to get involved, I really don't, on the, you know, if,
Well,
I still don't understand really what unsubstantiated versus substantiated is, but we know the prior supervisor did it, and superintendent, sorry. And we know that he did it. And if he was here, he would explain why he did it. And I think
But
if
it's
Dennis,
still supposed to come to me. It's,
But how would we even
Change
know?
of contracts.
well,
How would we even know?
I think Dennis should be able to make that, but then he can report it back to the board. I mean, I think he should still have the authority, but because he's running.
Well, I agree to a certain extent that, you know, I want to give Dennis as much latitude as anybody, if not more. And however, when it comes to contracts, if there's a change, you know, our health insurance is a contract, we're buying it with perceived, you know, instructions on here's how it's going to work. Now, if it's going to change and we're going to modify benefits, that needs to come back to the board.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes, if that's what you meant, I totally agree. But I think if it's the inner workings of the contract that don't have any cost associated with it, then I would think that he would have that authority. But absolutely, I agree with you 100%, because that would be, I think it'd be significant.
But that change had no cost associated, but it had a lot of inconvenience to the other 90.
I know, but if that person was here, he would be held responsible for that
Right,
decision.
so maybe in this letter that you're gonna sign with these people, maybe it could say any changes go before the board.
Well, the letter that he's going to sign actually goes to the carrier, so Blue
Yeah.
Cross is going to get that letter,
Oh,
which
okay.
I don't care. It's
Okay.
just basically saying. who our
Yeah, but won't we
agent's going
sign
to be.
something with Franklin saying?
It's an agent of record, so what you're doing is you're sending a letter that says,
There are
please be advised that Franklin Benefit Solutions is our broker of record, agent
Okay.
of record.
Because I don't see how you could monitor that anyway, because anybody can get on the phone and call and say, hey, I'm the clerk and I'm saying do this, and they're gonna do it probably.
Well,
And I might not tell you.
there's one of the things that why that won't work, Chris, is that there's plan administrators that are into the system. You have to be a plan administrator. So, for example, when Franklin first wanted me to give them authorization to even have a conversation with Choice Strategies, I provided that letter of authorization, and it was rejected by Choice Strategies because I wasn't listed as the plan administrator. We had to go back in and change that so that I was listed as the plan administrator so that I could give authorization. So if anyone just tries to go in, if it was someone else who tried to make changes, if they're not listed on in there as a plan
No,
administrator,
I
it won't
understand that,
happen.
Dennis, but I meant like, I didn't want to say.
It doesn't have to have board approval, it just has to have board awareness.
I love that phrase, that's a very good phrase.
But I'm
Board
just saying,
awareness.
like, you could call up and say, hey, we're gonna change the plan, and unless you tell us, we don't know that you changed it. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm just thinking out loud, and I don't know what the solution is, but it seems like we find out these things after the fact. And
Yeah, way
I don't know if
after.
there's any way to communicate to our vendors that, you know, when we sign a contract, well, hey, the only way this thing can be changed is with board approval.
And one of the things too, Scott, in that is when the motions are made to execute a contract, it's important that the board include in all of those motions and authorize the supervisor or superintendent or whoever you're gonna have do it. But when you include those in every motion, that sets it forth that, you know, we're executing a contract, the board's taken an action, we've agreed to execute a contract, and, you know, it's the supervisor and clerk, or it's the supervisor and superintendent. You specifically make the authorized person in the motion, then no changes can happen because those were the authorized signatories on the contract.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so we have a motion and support. Did we
And
vote on that?
yeah, we did, we voted.
Okay.
So Dennis has the authority to do this.
Along those lines, I just want to mention this too, while we're on Dennis' responsibility and that. One of the things I think too, that when it comes to hiring people, we need to make sure Dennis is involved in that process 100% because we've got, you know, the legal maze that's out there that we need to make sure that we go through when we hire or fire somebody or reprimand or whatever is enormous. And I'd much rather, I think, if Dennis isn't completely up to date on that, he's going to be, and I'd rather have one person in charge of that. The other thing is that I think when we're looking at staffing levels, one of the things that I know in my really personal discussion with Dennis that I talked to him about was that I wanted to see if we couldn't unify and have more of a one team type effort here instead of, hey, you know, this department and this department are totally separate and can't work together, what have you. And I think by allowing Dennis to do the hiring, it sends that message to the staff that, hey, Dennis is the coach and he's gonna be the one that determines, you know, staffing levels and who's working where and what have you, you know, within the union contract. So I would just encourage us to go that direction as we hire people. I know it's in our agreement, so, or I don't know if it's any written ordinance or anything else that department heads can hire their own part-time people, but I defer just to, hey, you know, as Dr. Reardon mentioned, we want Dennis to be able to make those kind of calls, but we really can't hold him accountable if he doesn't have the responsibility.
And he's talking cross-training too?
Everything, anything that Dennis sees
Yes.
fit, I think.
Yeah, I would agree that Dennis should be in on the process, but for instance, just, you know, when we talk about hiring police officers, dispatchers, you know, but I actually think Dennis should be in on the process. So you could be there, but so when we hire people, especially part-time people, the department heads should definitely consult. Because I know, for instance, when we were doing part-time hiring in the police department, way back, we needed a person that had specific skills in property room management. And just so happens that we found a person, and we needed that. And so that's, the chief said, no, we need this person. And so I think I agree with you that he should be in the process.
Yeah. One thing that's just floating in my head that can run into a problem is if I'm a department head and I'm hiring somebody and I maybe don't overtly, but kind of intimate that there's gonna be some benefit or something that, you know, isn't written. If I'm in there doing the hiring by myself, that person, it could be a huge thing, and to me, oh, I mentioned that there might be this or something. Whereas if you have, you know, our person that's in charge, I think he would probably write, I wanna correct that, Scott. That person's not going to get this, you know.
I agree with you.
So that's why I think, you know, even in those situations where, yeah, I mean, I don't know Dennis' expertise in hired police officer, but, you know, Chief Stam is, and Dennis might be able to help guide the future of where we're going to.
100%, I agree.
So that's all I'd ask if we're looking at hiring anybody part-time or full-time for different departments.
I agree.
That we work with Dennis on that.
I agree.
Good point.
Is there anything else?
Are you gonna bring up the
Yeah.
possibility in the budgets?
What's that?
The budgets.
What, that evidently there's some money in there for the clerk to hire somebody.
Right, that we weren't aware of, that, I know Dennis had mentioned that if he had extra money, he'd like to have a planner manager. So I'd like to consider that, because the planning manager, we needed that for a long, long time. And that other funds that were sitting in the budget, I didn't realize it was there because it was gone in 15. And so I'd like to consider that we discuss that and possibly use those funds for the planning manager and not in the clerk department.
Well,
We shouldn't talk about this tonight, should we?
Yeah, I think we need to talk
Go
about it
ahead,
tonight,
Jim.
because
We got
it's.
two people not here.
Well,
And
then we.
it's not on the agenda, Earl, but.
Yeah,
go
well, he
ahead,
brought it
Jim.
on the agenda.
What I'm talking about is we were talking about Dennis' responsibility, and that's the light I brought it up under, is that
Right.
even the idea of the planner,
Right.
you know, and
That's
we've had
Dennis'
discussion
idea.
about that that's where we'd like to go. And that's another reason to have Dennis involved, is, hey, maybe this person, maybe we can move some things around so that, you know, if Chris needs some help or whatever, hey, who better to know about it than the person in charge, you know, to make sure our staffing are adequate. And if we want to move some money over to planner, I mean, I'm relying on the guy we hired to
I agree, and he put forth a budget, and I really, at this point, this budget, we've looked at it since August, this hasn't, not on the agenda, and I don't really want to, I don't really want to talk about it personally.
Well, personally, I want to talk about it because I didn't realize that was in the budget, it was taken off in 15, and we should have been notified, do we want to put this back on the budget or not?
You didn't read the budgets? I read the one in August, I read when it came out again in, I think it was September.
I was told there was nothing changed in it. in
So
that
you didn't
section.
read it?
I didn't read that section, you're
So,
right. I
okay.
went through my budget, I didn't go through
Okay.
the clerks, because we took it out in December
We took out,
15
we
budget,
took out a full-time employee.
and we took out the
We took out a
halftime too.
full-time employee. We
What
did
I'm
not
saying
take
is,
out a half-time.
no one knew that. Did you know that, Mickey, that the part-time person was put back in the clerk department?
I found out.
But did you know it when you voted?
Yeah, I did know it.
You did?
I'm sorry, but I did.
Did you know, I didn't know that, did you know?
No, but.
That's what I'm saying, just consider it, let
I
the
know,
whole
but-
board look at it
Yeah,
again
well,
and to consider.
I mean, I didn't scrutinize it to that point to see if there's a
Right.
part-time person in there, and I'm relying on our township
Right,
manager
and I was too.
to decide on.
And it was
staffing
just like the
levels.
fire department when we wanted to see their budget side by side. I mean, that's the exact reason, and I think, Earl, you brought that up.
Right,
And so when we were discussing that, we had their budget.
right.
And we didn't vote on it until we saw it. But Dennis has supplied this budget since August.
I agree, I made a mistake, I didn't look at it, but I did, we took it off the 15 budget, and any time in the past, when we've had changes, they would say, okay, the budget is similar to 2015, except this has been added or this has been deleted. I mean, Kathy came in,
Except
Kathy
that-
came in
okay.
and indicated, okay, we're taking out this other person in 2015, because I don't think I'm gonna need that person. It's coming out of the budget. She would specify that stuff,
Yeah.
okay? This time it didn't happen.
But our clerk has agreed that she will work with Dennis to make sure that whoever this person is that we want to bring on, or however we want to handle the staffing issue, Dennis is going to be involved in that to make sure that we meet our overall objective, I guess you'd say, I don't know.
Well, I just think we need a planner more than we needed an extra assistant, and that.
I would agree, but-
Because we never had that extra person in there, so.
Well, Earl, I'll be careful here what I say, but last year, you came in at the last minute,
Last minute?
and took out the full-time person that we were gonna have in the clerk's department, the additional full-time person.
Right, we didn't
Took
have.
it right out,
Right.
excuse me.
I didn't take it out, the board
Excuse
took
me.
it out.
Yeah, but you went around
No,
getting people
the
off.
board voted on it, that's all I'm
Earl,
saying, let the
well,
vote.
Earl, can I finish?
Let her finish.
Can I
Okay, I'm
finish?
sorry.
And you earmarked that money specifically to go to the superintendent's position.
Because we didn't have any money for the superintendent's position. I said,
That money didn't go to the superintendent's
well, I didn't know
position.
that at the time. I
Well,
just said, we have to hire we have to hire a planner, we have to hire a superintendent.
Earl, why did you jump so fast to hire another person in the treasury department? Why did you jump so fast to hire that third person? When
I was told they wanted the back window opened up, and they wanted to do other stuff, and I told the superintendent, it cannot happen unless you have another person, because.
They're off, okay.
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, Chris has agreed that she will work with Dennis on making sure that our.
I've been working with Dennis, and I intend to
Because I'd
work with
like to see
Dennis
us
till
work
the
as
end.
one unit
And I
instead
would
of
too, but I'm not
divided.
gonna be the only one doing
But I
it.
see we have public comment on the agenda. I don't
We
know.
do public comment, and then we
I
can
don't know if
adjourn.
that's where, but
Oh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I get the last word, right? I like it.
That's a first.
Maybe, let's see.
Merry Christmas to you people.
Merry
A couple things that came out in this presentation, okay? And it actually came from Franklin. Watch out for the Cadillac plans, which we're gonna end up paying a premium for. Maybe we can do something to adjust that so we don't have to pay any 40%. I really like that about that being said and reminding of it. And also, I think their technology was talking something about watching for 30 hours for part-time employees that they don't get kicked into the next bucket. So I like that about that. Thank you. Have a good holiday.
and thank you for your ongoing involvement.
Yes.
You're welcome, and thanks for listening.
It's good to have people who are tuned in and interested.
Kathy Lane, I think for the good of the contractor that you selected, make sure that they understand the words unsubstantiated and substantiated, because until they really get into it, you might find that that's a problem that isn't as easily resolved as we thought it would be, because it obviously is going to take some employee cooperation if they're not providing the information. And I think, as you all know, taxpayers' money is limited, so please watch it carefully.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.